delicate porcelain vase rests on a wooden shelf. Its surface shimmers in the moonlight, painted with flowers that seem to breathe. And yet, as you gaze closer, you see the truth hidden within it. This vase is already broken. Its cracks have not yet appeared, but one day they will. It will fall, it will shatter, and it will return to dust. And because of this, it is infinitely precious right now. Have you ever felt this same fragile beauty in your own life? The sense that nothing can be held forever, that the harder you grasp, the more it slips through your fingers. We try to control, to protect, to fight against time itself. But in our grasping, peace vanishes. What if the secret is not in holding tighter, but in loosening our grip? What if the freedom we search for lies not in resisting life, but in flowing with it? Buddhist wisdom has whispered this truth for centuries. When we release, life carries us. When we soften, love deepens. When we trust the current, we discover the vast ocean within. Over the next few hours, we will journey through 25 parables, each a window, each a key. They will show you how to let go of the burdens that weigh you down, how to meet change without fear, and how to rediscover the quiet strength already living in your heart. So take a deep breath. Feel the weight of the day ease from your shoulders. Allow your body to sink into comfort, as if the earth itself is holding you. Tonight, you do not need to struggle. Tonight, you can drift into the river of timeless wisdom and let it carry you gently home. And as you rest, let us begin with a story that speaks to one of our deepest illusions, the belief that control keeps us safe. Imagine a child holding tightly to the string of a kite, pulling harder and harder in fear of losing it. The string cuts into their hand, the kite shudders, and finally, with a sudden snap, it tears apart and falls. The harder they tried to hold on, the more fragile it became. This is where our journey begins. With the kite and the wind, and the lesson that only when we loosen our grip can life lift us higher. Imagine a child standing in a wide open field, holding a kite in both hands. The sky is bright and blue, the wind full of playful strength. The kite dances, soaring higher and higher, as if the heavens themselves are carrying it upward. For a moment, the child feels joy, the kind of joy that comes when we see something fragile rise against gravity. But then, a shadow of fear creeps in. What if the kite escapes? What if it is lost forever to the sky? In panic, the child grips the string tighter and tighter, pulling harder to keep it close. The tension grows, the fabric strains, until at last the kite tears, and all that remains is a broken piece fluttering to the ground. This simple image holds a truth that touches every one of us. How often do we hold life in the same way? Believing that control is safety, we grip tightly onto plans, people, and outcomes. We imagine that if only we could control more, we would finally be secure. But the more we clutch, the more fragile everything becomes. Control is not safety, it is self-imprisonment. It binds us to fear, because the tighter we hold, the more terrified we become of loss. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that the desire for control springs from delusion. Life is not a kite that must obey our grip. Life is the wind itself, untamable, beyond our hands, yet capable of lifting us higher when we learn to trust it. When we release the string slightly, the kite dances freely. In the same way, when we loosen our attachment, we discover that life carries us with surprising grace. Think of the times when you clung too tightly to a relationship, a job, or even an identity. Did it bring peace, or did it bring tension? Often, we discover that what we fear most The unknown becomes the very place where freedom is found. When the grip loosens, the wind takes over, and what once felt like chaos reveals itself as harmony. The Buddha often spoke of clinging as the root of suffering. Clinging to what we desire, clinging to permanence, clinging to how things should be. In the story of the kite, clinging shreds the fabric. In life, clinging tears at our joy. Release is not the same as neglect. It is the trust that life unfolds in ways our limited mind cannot fully grasp. To live with open hands is to let the wind guide the flight. As you lie here, breathing gently, perhaps you can notice where your hands are holding too tightly. Maybe not physically, but in your heart. A dream, a memory, an expectation. With your next breath, imagine placing that burden in the wind. Feel the release, the lightness, the way your body softens when it no longer strains to hold what was never meant to be contained. The lesson of the kite is not to abandon care, but to transform fear into trust. Control imprisons us in smallness. Surrender sets us free into vastness. The sky is not conquered by force, it is entered by flow. And just as the child discovers joy only when letting the kite dance with the wind, we too discover our freedom only when we allow life to breathe through us. And so, as the moonlight rests upon the quiet river of your mind, let the kite of your heart lift gently with the invisible current. Trust that you are carried, not by your grip, but by the greater wind of life itself. And now, as we release the string and watch the kite soar, let us turn to another image, the way water meets stone. For just as control teaches us the pain of gripping, the river teaches us the art of flowing around obstacles, the art of non-interference. Picture a mountain stream, born from snowmelt high above the valleys. It begins as a trickle, then gathers strength, winding its way down slopes and through forests. As it flows, it meets obstacles, branches fallen across its path, boulders jutting from the earth, entire cliffs blocking the way forward. But notice what the river does not do. It does not push angrily at the rock until exhaustion overtakes it. It does not declare war against the mountain. Instead, it pauses, swirls, and then finds another way. The water curls gently around the stone, embracing it, polishing its rough edges with patience. What seemed like a barrier becomes part of the river's song. The wisdom of the river is the wisdom of non-interference. It shows us that resistance is not the only way to engage with life's obstacles. When we fight every rock, we spend our strength in vain. But when we learn to flow around what cannot be moved, we discover a power greater than force, the power of persistence, harmony, and time. The river's path may bend, but it never ceases to reach the sea. So often in our lives, we mistake interference for control. We believe we must push, manipulate, or force outcomes in order to succeed. A child must achieve, so we pressure them into the mold of our own desires. A colleague must behave as we expect, so we interfere in ways that strain the relationship. Even with ourselves, we fight endlessly, criticizing, demanding, or punishing when things do not align with an inner script. Yet, just as the rock remains unmoved by the anger of the stream, life's obstacles remain resistant to our interference. Non-interference is not indifference. It does not mean we abandon responsibility or ignore suffering. Rather, it is the discipline of wise restraint, the ability to discern when action is fruitful, and when stepping back allows nature, time, and conditions to do their work. A gardener does not tug at the stem of a flower to make it taller. She tends the soil, waters the ground, and trusts the Sunday. To interfere with the delicate rhythm of life is to suffocate growth before it can emerge. The Buddha once described life as a current. To fight it is to drown, but to align with it is to reach the shore. This is the essence of non-interference. To act when action is aligned with the flow, and to refrain when interference creates more harm than help. It requires humility, for we must admit that we cannot command the river of existence. We can only learn to move within its course. Think of times when you interfered too soon or too forcefully. Perhaps you gave advice to someone who was not ready to receive it, only to be met with resistance. Or perhaps you tried to force a decision in your life, and though you achieved it, the result brought more strain than joy. In hindsight, you may see that waiting or allowing space would have led to a gentler unfolding. Like the water swirling patiently around a rock, sometimes the kindest action is no action at all. This practice is deeply linked to mindfulness. To sit with a moment without grasping or pushing it away is itself non-interference. When anger arises, rather than suppressing it or unleashing it upon another, we can observe it, breathe with it, and allow it to pass. When grief comes, we need not distract ourselves endlessly or demand it leave. Instead, we can make space for grief to flow through us, just as the river makes space for the stone. The grief will not erase us. It will shape us, polish us, soften us into new forms of compassion. The Taoist masters often praised water as the highest teacher, for it seeks no status. It does not boast, and yet it nourishes all life. Buddhism too finds lessons in water, reminding us that patience and gentleness carry a strength more enduring than rigid interference. The hardest rock is worn down, not by force, but by the persistent softness of water's embrace. In this way, obstacles that once seemed permanent can dissolve into lessons, given enough time and enough surrender. As you listen now, consider your own rocks. Perhaps there is a situation you desperately want to change. Perhaps it is a person you wish behaved differently, or a circumstance that seems unyielding. Ask yourself, what would it mean to be the river here? Could you soften your grasp, allow space for things to shift naturally, and trust that time will bring transformation? This is not passivity, it is active wisdom. It is saying, I will not waste my strength in futile struggle. I will choose the path that allows me to continue flowing. In meditation practice, non-interference is the heart of letting thoughts come and go. Instead of wrestling each thought, we allow them to rise and pass, like leaves drifting on the water's surface. The mind, like the river, clears itself when we do not interfere. The more we try to push thoughts away, the stronger they rebound. But when we allow them to flow untouched, they lose power. This is how peace reveals itself, not by conquest, but by permission. Notice, too, how this principle applies to relationships. To love someone does not mean to control their every step. Love is the spaciousness that allows another to grow in their own way. When we interfere constantly, we suffocate them with our expectations. But when we embody the river, we become a presence that nurtures without constraining. This is the deepest form of respect, and it is what allows true intimacy to flourish. In your breathing now, you can practice non-interference. Let the breath rise and fall naturally, without control. Do not demand it be slower or faster, deeper or shallower. Notice how the body already knows how to breathe. Life flows through you without your interference. With each inhale, trust that you are nourished. With each exhale, trust that you are released. In this simple act, you are already practicing the wisdom of the river. Non-interference does not mean we are powerless. Quite the opposite. It teaches us to align with the deepest power of life itself. Just as the river does not stop for the rock, you need not stop for the obstacles of your path. You may bend, you may pause, but you will continue. In time, your gentleness will carve a passage. And just as the river shapes valleys and nourishes forests, your quiet persistence will shape a life of beauty. Now, let your body sink into the bed beneath you, as if it were the riverbed itself. Imagine yourself as water, soft, clear, persistent. Every obstacle before you is not an enemy, but a stone to flow around, a shape to polish, a teacher to learn from. Trust that you will find your way, as all rivers eventually find the sea. And as we rest in this image, let us drift toward another truth, one even more delicate than the river's patience. For the river reminds us of movement, but what about the passing of moments themselves? Just as petals fall from the blossom, beauty reveals itself in its fleetingness. And so, we turn now to the next teaching, the lesson of impermanence, whispered in the falling of a petal. In a quiet garden at the edge of dawn, a flower opens its face to the rising Sunday. Dew clings to its petals, shimmering like jewels in the pale light. For a time, the blossom radiates color and fragrance, drawing bees and butterflies to its heart. Yet, as the day moves on, the petals begin to soften. A gentle breeze arrives, and one petal detaches, drifting slowly through the air. It twirls, weightless, before landing softly on the earth. The flower remains, but now with one less part of itself. Tomorrow, more petals will fall. Eventually, the entire blossom will return to the soil, becoming nourishment for the seeds waiting quietly beneath the ground. This simple image of a falling petal reveals the profound truth of impermanence. Everything that is born will change. Everything that arises will pass away. We may admire the blossom and wish to preserve its beauty forever, but time does not obey our wishes. To deny this truth is to invite suffering. To accept it is to open ourselves to a deeper form of love. Impermanence can feel like a thief. It steals our youth, our loved ones, our moments of joy. Yet, if we look carefully, impermanence is not a thief at all. It is the very reason we cherish anything at all. If the blossom were eternal, would we marvel at its beauty? If we knew our loved ones would walk beside us for countless lifetimes, would we truly treasure their presence today? It is precisely because things fade that they shine so brightly while they last. The Buddha taught that clinging to permanence is one of the fundamental roots of suffering. We cling to youth, to health, to relationships, to identities, as though they will last forever. But reality whispers otherwise. When change inevitably arrives, we resist it, and in that resistance lies our pain. Yet if we can shift our perspective even slightly, impermanence transforms from an enemy into a gift. Consider the seasons. Each has its own beauty, yet none can stay. Spring blossoms yield to summer's fullness. Summer bows to autumn's fading light. Winter strips the trees bare, only to prepare the way for new growth. If we fought the passing of each season, we would never rest. But when we embrace the rhythm, each stage becomes meaningful. In the same way, our lives are seasons. Childhood gives way to youth, youth to maturity, maturity to age. Each carries lessons that prepare us for the next. Think of the times when impermanence has already shaped you. The loss of a job may have led you to a new path. The ending of a relationship may have opened space for deeper connection. The passing of a loved one, while painful, may have taught you to live more fully in the present. These transformations are not meant to dismiss grief or deny sorrow. They remind us that change is the very soil in which wisdom and compassion grow. The falling petal also teaches us to let go gracefully. The flower does not cling to what must depart. It releases each petal to the wind, trusting the process of life. Can we do the same? Can we let go of what no longer serves us, not with bitterness, but with gratitude for the role it played? Every ending is also a beginning. The petal that falls nourishes the soil for future blossoms. In your own life, what petals are ready to fall? Perhaps an old habit, a belief that limits you, or a memory that no longer needs to be carried. In meditation, impermanence is observed with each breath. The inhale rises, the exhale falls. No breath can be held forever. To cling to one is to suffocate. Life itself is a series of breaths, a rhythm of arising and passing. When we align ourselves with this truth, we begin to live more gently. We stop grasping so fiercely at what cannot be held. Instead, we savor each inhale, each moment, each encounter, knowing it is fleeting. There is a quiet liberation in this acceptance. When you understand impermanence, fear begins to loosen its grip. You see that suffering, too, is not permanent. The storm will pass, the wound will heal, the night will yield to dawn. Impermanence gives hope, for no pain can last forever. At the same time, it awakens appreciation, for no joy can last forever either. This dual truth invites us to live with presence, to notice the small beauties that otherwise slip away unnoticed, the laughter of a friend, the warmth of sunlight on skin, the kindness of a stranger. In Zen tradition, there is a practice of placing fresh flowers on the altar, not to worship permanence, but to honor impermanence. The flowers remind practitioners that beauty fades, and in fading, beauty deepens. To bow before impermanence is to bow before reality itself. As you rest now, perhaps you can imagine holding a blossom in your hand. See its petals, delicate and alive. Feel its fragrance, brief yet sweet. And as one petal loosens, allow yourself to smile. This is not the end of beauty, it is beauty revealing its truth. With each falling petal, life whispers, "Do not take me for granted. Treasure me now, while I am here." You may reflect on your own moments of impermanence. A goodbye you never wanted, yet one that shaped you. A fleeting joy that left a lasting memory. Each has carved a space in your heart. A reminder that nothing is wasted, for even loss can become nourishment. Like the soil enriched by fallen petals, you too are enriched by every change you have endured. As night surrounds you, let impermanence be your comfort. The worries of today will not last forever. The heaviness you carry will eventually soften. The breath you take now is unique, never to be repeated. This moment is precious precisely because it will pass. Surrender to its passing, and you will find peace. And now, as we let the petal fall and watch it join the earth, let us listen to another teaching. For impermanence shows us the fragility of life, but the path requires balance as well. Just as a string must be tuned neither too tightly nor too loosely, so too must our effort in walking this path. And so, we turn to the next lesson, the art of balanced effort. In the hush of an old temple, a monk once approached the Buddha with a troubled heart. He confessed that his practice felt exhausting. The discipline of meditation weighed upon him like an anchor. "Master," he asked, "why do I feel so weary? Have I failed the path? The Buddha, patient as always, asked him a question in return. When you played the lute in your youth, how did you tune its strings? The monk remembered. If I tightened them too much, they snapped. If I left them too loose, they made no sound. Only when I tuned them with care did they create music. The Buddha smiled. In the same way, your effort must be tuned. Too tight, and you will break. Too loose, and you will fall into idleness. Tune your effort as you would the lute, and the music of your practice will arise. This teaching is timeless. How often do we, like that monk, swing between extremes? At times, we push ourselves relentlessly, driven by ambition, perfectionism, or fear of failure. We force the mind to meditate, the body to work, the spirit to endure beyond its limits. Like the over-tightened string, we snap. Burnout, exhaustion, and despair creep in. Other times, we surrender too completely. We abandon discipline, drift into distraction, and convince ourselves that tomorrow will be the day we begin again. Yet, the loose string offers no melody, only silence. Balanced effort is the middle way. It is not laziness, nor is it obsession. It is the steady, compassionate discipline of showing up, neither demanding perfection nor excusing neglect. It is a rhythm, like the beating of a heart or the rise and fall of the breath, that sustains us through the long journey of life. Think of a candle. If the flame is too high, it consumes itself quickly. If it is too low, it flickers out. But when it is tended carefully, it burns with steady light, illuminating the darkness. Balanced effort is the tending of this flame within you. The challenge lies in discernment. How do we know when our string is too tight or too loose? The answer is in listening to the body, the mind, the heart. When effort is too tight, the body aches with strain, the mind grows restless, and the heart hardens with self-judgment. When effort is too loose, the body feels heavy with lethargy, the mind becomes dull, and the heart drifts into apathy. Both are signs of imbalance. The path asks us not to ignore these signals, but to honor them, to adjust, to retune, to find harmony once more. The Buddha described 4 kinds of effort in practice: the effort to prevent unwholesome states from arising, the effort to abandon unwholesome states that have arisen, the effort to cultivate wholesome states not yet born, and the effort to sustain wholesome states that are present. None of these efforts are harsh. They are gentle yet consistent, like the gardener who weeds, waters, and nurtures, knowing growth takes time. Consider the modern world, where imbalance often disguises itself as virtue. Overwork is praised as dedication, while rest is mistaken for laziness. Yet, overwork breaks us, and rest restores us. To work without pause is to tighten the string until it snaps. To abandon responsibility is to loosen it until no music comes. Balanced effort reminds us that wisdom lies not in extremes, but in rhythm. Work and rest, discipline and play, striving and release, each has its place in the song of life. In relationships, too, balance matters. Too much effort to control or change another person creates tension, resentment, and eventual collapse. Too little effort leaves the bond neglected, unloved, and fading. But the balanced effort of care, consistent, gentle, and respectful, creates harmony. It is the daily act of showing up with presence, neither demanding nor withdrawing. Meditation itself is a practice of tuning. If you strain for stillness, the mind rebels. If you abandon focus entirely, the mind wanders endlessly. But when you sit with balanced effort, awareness arises naturally. You breathe, you notice, you return gently when the mind drifts. This is the music of the mind tuned with care. Ask yourself now, where in your life is the string too tight? Perhaps you push yourself beyond what is kind, demanding achievement without mercy. Where is it too loose? Perhaps you avoid what calls for your attention, letting procrastination or fear keep you still. In each case, the question is not one of blame, but of tuning. Can you bring the string into harmony again? Can you adjust until the sound is clear and true? Imagine yourself as an instrument. Your life, your practice, your work, and your relationships are the melody. Each requires balance to produce beauty. No one expects the song to be flawless. What matters is that it is played with sincerity, with steady effort tuned to wisdom. As you rest here, notice your breath once more. Do not force it, do not neglect it. Let it rise and fall naturally. This is the rhythm of balanced effort. Each inhale is a gentle discipline, each exhale a gentle release. Together, they sustain life without strain. This breath is your teacher. Balanced effort also teaches compassion for ourselves. When we slip, it is not a reason for harshness. The string may loosen, but we can retune. When we overextend, it is not a reason for shame. The string may tighten, but we can soften. In every moment, we are given the chance to tune again. This is the gift of impermanence applied to effort. No imbalance is final. The music can always return. There is a story of a master archer who trained his students not only in skill but in balance. He taught them that hitting the target was not the true goal. The true goal was to release the arrow with a steady heart. If the bow was drawn with too much strain, the arrow faltered. If it was drawn without focus, the arrow wandered. Only when the bow was balanced did the arrow fly true. In the same way, our actions in life find their mark not through extremes, but through balance. So, as the night deepens around you, allow this truth to settle in your heart. You are not asked to be perfect, nor are you asked to surrender to neglect. You are asked to tune yourself with care, to find the rhythm that allows your life to sing. Balanced effort is the music of the middle way. And as this melody lingers, let us turn to another teaching, one that speaks not of effort, but of patience. For even when we tune our string, growth does not arrive instantly. Seeds must rest in the soil, unseen, before they rise. Our next lesson awaits in the quiet darkness of the earth, the patience of karma, the seed beneath the soil. Deep beneath the surface of the earth, hidden from sight, a seed lies waiting. It is small, seemingly insignificant, yet within it rests the blueprint of life. When the farmer places it in the soil, the seed does not sprout immediately. For days, perhaps weeks, there is nothing visible. The farmer waters it, the sun warms it, the soil embraces it, but to the eye, all remains still. Then, one morning, a fragile green shoot breaks through the darkness, stretching toward the light. This is the rhythm of karma. We plant seeds with our actions, our words, and our thoughts, but the harvest is not ours to demand. Just as the farmer cannot pull on the sprout to make it grow faster, we cannot force the results of our actions to appear before their time. Karma unfolds according to conditions, soil, water, sunlight, and the passage of days. Our task is to plant wisely, to nurture patiently, and to trust that in the fullness of time, what has been sown will come to fruition. Impatience is one of the greatest sources of suffering. We live in a world that glorifies immediacy, instant communication, instant gratification, instant success. When our efforts do not yield quick results, we grow restless, anxious, even despairing. Yet the laws of life do not bend to our haste. A tree cannot be rushed. A child cannot mature in a single day. A wound cannot heal without time. To live in harmony with karma is to surrender our obsession with speed and trust the slow wisdom of growth. The Buddha often compared karma to agriculture. Good actions are seeds of peace, compassion, and wisdom. Unwholesome actions are seeds of suffering, anger, and delusion. Both kinds of seeds lie dormant until conditions ripen. This is why the path requires both mindfulness in planting and patience in waiting. If we sow anger, we should not be surprised when conflict blooms later. If we cultivate generosity, the fruits of kindness will inevitably appear, though perhaps not immediately, and perhaps in forms we did not expect. There is a story of a disciple who became frustrated with meditation. After weeks of sitting, he felt no progress, no enlightenment, no great vision. He complained to his master, "Why do I not see results? Am I wasting my time?" The master replied, "When you plant bamboo, it does not grow above the soil for the first years. It is busy spreading roots beneath, preparing for the strength it will need to rise tall. If you abandon it too soon, you will never see its towering height." The disciple understood. Practice, like bamboo, may be invisible at first, but its roots deepen quietly, preparing for future strength. Patience with karma also means accepting that not everything we plant will bloom in our lifetime. Sometimes we sow seeds of kindness, but another generation reaps the harvest. Sometimes we do not see the fruits of our efforts, yet they ripple outward, touching lives beyond our sight. In this way, patience is also trust. We trust that no act of love is ever wasted, even if we never see its result. Think of the people in your life who have planted seeds in you, perhaps a teacher's encouragement, a parent's sacrifice, or a friend's kindness shaped who you are today. Did they always know how their actions would bloom? Likely not. But their patience allowed the seed to grow in its own time. You, too, are planting seeds with every word you speak, every gesture you make. They may not sprout today, but they will in the seasons to come. Impatience with karma often leads us into despair when life feels unfair. We see someone who behaves selfishly yet seems to prosper, or someone kind who suffers hardship. We wonder, where is justice? But the timeline of karma is not bound by our human expectations. Just as a seed may lie dormant through winter before sprouting in spring, the results of actions may take years or lifetimes to manifest. This is why the Buddha taught not to fixate on immediate appearances, but to continue sowing wholesome seeds, trusting in the law of cause and effect. In your own practice, patience with karma means continuing even when results are not visible. Sitting in meditation may feel ordinary, yet over time it shapes the mind. Acts of generosity may feel small, yet over time they soften the heart. Words of kindness may seem fleeting, yet they plant memories that endure. The fruit of practice is not instant illumination but gradual transformation, often seen only in retrospect. There is also a deeper teaching here. Sometimes the harvest we receive is not what we imagined, yet it is precisely what we need. The farmer may sow wheat but find that rain fails and only weeds emerge. Yet even weeds can be used for compost, enriching the soil for the next planting. In the same way, Even painful outcomes can become nourishment for wisdom, compassion, and resilience. Karma does not always give us what we want, but it always gives us the conditions for growth. As you lie here listening, perhaps you can reflect on the seeds you are planting now. What words did you speak today? Were they seeds of kindness or irritation? What actions did you take? Were they seeds of harmony or discord? Each seed matters. But equally important, are you willing to wait, to water them with patience, to trust their unfolding? Breathe in and imagine yourself placing a seed gently in the soil. Breathe out and cover it with care. Feel the patience required, not to rush, not to demand, but to allow. The earth beneath you, the night around you, all of it reminds you that growth is slow, silent, and inevitable. Just as the seed breaks open in darkness before reaching the light, so too your life blossoms through hidden transformations. Patience with karma is also patience with yourself. You may not see your progress day to day, but that does not mean it is absent. Each mindful breath, each compassionate choice, each moment of awareness, these are seeds taking root. One day, without effort, you will look back and see how far you have come. The sprout will have become a tree, its branches offering shade to others. Trust the soil of your life. Trust the seeds you have planted. Trust that nothing is wasted, even if unseen. This trust is not passive resignation. It is active faith in the rhythms of existence. Just as the farmer continues to water even when the soil looks barren, so too must we continue to nurture our practice, our relationships, our intentions. And so, as we honor the patience of the seed, let us prepare for the next teaching. For if patience shows us how to wait, the cycles of samsara show us what we must learn again and again. The wheel of existence turns, and with each revolution, we are invited to release what binds us. Let us now step onto this wheel, not as prisoners, but as students discovering samsara as our greatest teacher. Imagine a great wheel, ancient and vast, turning ceaselessly through the ages. It has no beginning and no end, only the endless rhythm of rotation. This is the wheel of samsara, the cycle of birth and death, joy and sorrow, gain and loss. At first glance, it may seem like a prison, trapping us in repetition. But look closer, and you will see that the wheel is also a teacher, offering lessons with every turn. We all know the sensation of repetition in our own lives. Patterns recur, relationships that echo one another, struggles that resurface, mistakes we thought we had moved beyond. Perhaps you notice how anger arises in the same way, no matter how many times you resolve to let it go. Perhaps fear returns, dressed in different circumstances but carrying the same familiar weight. These cycles are not accidents. They are the wheel of samsara, turning to show us what we have yet to learn. The Buddha described samsara as the realm of suffering, but not as a punishment. It is a mirror, reflecting our attachments, our illusions, our resistance. Each turn of the wheel gives us another chance to see clearly, to awaken. Where there is pain, there is a lesson waiting. Where there is joy, there is a truth to be cherished, but not clung to. Samsara is not here to condemn us, it is here to teach us. Consider how the seasons mirror this cycle. Winter yields to spring, spring to summer, summer to autumn, and back again. The earth does not resist the cycle, it transforms within it. Leaves fall not as tragedy, but as preparation. Snow covers not to destroy, but to rest. In the same way, our lives revolve through seasons of happiness and loss. If we resist them, we suffer doubly, first from the change itself, and then from our refusal to accept it. But if we recognize the teaching within each season, samsara becomes our guide. One of the profound lessons of samsara is the futility of clinging. We chase after pleasure, believing it will last forever. Yet pleasure fades, and we are left disappointed. We push away pain, believing we can escape it. Yet pain finds us again, teaching us resilience. The wheel turns, indifferent to our desires. It does not stop for joy or for grief. It continues, and in that continuity, we are asked, will you cling to the spokes, or will you learn to ride with balance? There is a story of a king who asked his wise advisor for a phrase that would be true in all situations, in joy and in sorrow. The advisor wrote 4 simple words, "This too shall pass." When the king was victorious, he read them and remembered not to cling to pride. When he was defeated, he read them and remembered not to cling to despair. This is the teaching of samsara. Nothing is fixed, nothing is final. The wheel always turns. Samsara also teaches humility. In times of success, we may believe we are above suffering. Yet the wheel turns and loss comes. In times of despair, we may believe we are doomed forever. Yet the wheel turns and joy returns. No state defines us permanently. We are not our triumphs, nor our failures. We are travelers on the wheel, learning with each revolution. Meditation reveals this turning within the mind itself. Sit quietly and watch your thoughts. Joy arises, then fades. Anger sparks, then dissolves. Memories appear, then vanish. The mind is samsara in miniature, unceasing, impermanent, turning always. When we try to stop the wheel of thought by force, we grow frustrated. But when we simply observe, we begin to see patterns. We notice the triggers of anger, the roots of fear, the habits of craving. Each observation is a lesson, a chance to release attachment. In this way, meditation transforms samsara from chaos into curriculum. Samsara is also the teacher of compassion. Because all beings share in this cycle of suffering and joy, none of us are exempt. The anger of another is their wheel turning. Their fear, their grief, their longing, it mirrors our own. When we see this, judgment softens. We understand that just as we are trapped at times, so are they. Compassion is born from recognizing the shared experience of samsara. It is the bridge that turns isolation into connection. Ask yourself now, what cycles repeat in your life? Perhaps it is a recurring conflict with loved ones, or a repeated habit that leads to regret. Rather than despairing, can you see it as samsara teaching you? What lesson lies beneath the repetition? Perhaps patience, perhaps forgiveness, perhaps the courage to let go. The wheel will continue to turn until the lesson is learned. This is not cruelty, but compassion. The universe offers as many chances as needed. In Buddhist imagery, the wheel of samsara is often depicted with beings caught in its spokes, gods, humans, animals, spirits, all bound by desire and aversion. Yet, at the center of the wheel sits the hub, still and unmoving. This hub represents the awakened mind. Though the wheel turns endlessly, the hub remains quiet, untouched by motion. This is the potential within us all. Even as samsara spins, we can discover stillness at the center. To awaken is not to escape the wheel immediately, but to recognize the hub within ourselves. As you breathe gently now, imagine yourself on this wheel. Notice the ups and downs of your own life, the turns of joy and sorrow. Feel the motion, the impermanence, the inevitability, and then shift your attention inward to the still center of your being. Here, there is no turning, no coming and going. Here, there is peace. Samsara spins around you, but you are not bound to its edges. You are the hub, steady and clear. Samsara, then, is not simply suffering. It is the classroom of awakening. Each joy teaches appreciation. Each sorrow teaches impermanence. Each cycle teaches release. When we resist, we suffer. When we learn, we grow. And eventually, the lessons lead us beyond the wheel altogether. But to step toward that freedom, we must first understand the interwoven nature of all things. Samsara does not turn in isolation. Every being, every action, every choice connects like the spokes of the wheel. To see this fully is to encounter another great teaching, the vision of interdependence, reflected in the infinite jewels of Indra's net. Far above the world, in the heavens of ancient myth, there is said to hang a vast and shining net. This is Indra's net, woven of infinite strands, stretching endlessly in all directions. At each crossing of the threads rests a perfect jewel, clear and luminous. Look closely into any jewel, and you will see reflected the glimmer of all the others. Each gem holds the whole net within itself. None exists alone, and none shines without the others. This image, born from the wisdom of the Avatamsaka Sutra, is not a myth to entertain but a vision to awaken. It shows us the truth of emptiness and interdependence, the reality that nothing in existence stands alone, and everything arises through conditions. Just as the jewels reflect one another, our lives, too, are woven into an endless web of connections. Think of the simple act of drinking tea. You hold a cup in your hands, steam rising gently. Yet within that cup lies the rain that fell on distant hills, the soil that nurtured the leaves, the hands of the farmer who harvested them, the work of those who shaped the clay into a vessel, the fire that baked it, the merchant who carried it, the friend who poured it. In each sip, countless lives and conditions meet. The tea does not exist by itself. It is the culmination of the universe, reflecting through one small cup. This is the heart of emptiness. To say something is empty in Buddhism is not to say it is nothing. Rather, it means it is empty of a separate, independent existence. The flower is not just a flower, it is rain, soil, sun, seed, and countless unseen forces. The self is not a solid I. It is body, breath, mind, memory, family, culture, time. To recognize emptiness is to see through the illusion of separateness and discover the fullness of interconnection. Why does this matter? Because when we believe in separateness, we suffer. We say, this is mine, that is yours, this is me, that is other. From this illusion grows greed, fear, and conflict. We cling to possessions, identities, and boundaries as though they can shield us. Yet when we awaken to interdependence, greed softens into generosity, fear dissolves into trust, and conflict transforms into compassion. Look again at Indra's net. If one jewel is cracked, its reflection appears in all others. In the same way, when one being suffers, the whole web is affected. The cries of the hungry, the pain of the oppressed, the grief of the lonely, these are not distant or abstract. They vibrate through the web and reach us, even if faintly. This is why compassion is not optional. It is the natural response to recognizing interconnection. Consider your own life. How many people's efforts sustain you each day? The farmer who grew your food, the driver who delivered it, the builder who raised your home, the teacher who shaped your mind, the stranger whose kindness once lifted your spirit. Even the air you breathe is shared, passed through forests, oceans, and countless living beings. You are not alone. You are a jewel, reflecting countless others. And your actions, too, ripple outward. A word of kindness can brighten a day, shift a mood, change a life. A careless word can wound, echoing far beyond what you see. In meditation, the awareness of interdependence arises when the boundaries of self begin to soften. As you breathe, you may notice that the air you draw in was moments ago outside of you. With each exhale, part of you returns to the world. Where does the self begin and end? The line is not as solid as it seems. The body you call yours is composed of food, water, sunlight, all borrowed from the earth and destined to return. Even your thoughts are woven from language, culture, and countless influences. You are a wave in the ocean, unique in form, inseparable in essence. This understanding also brings humility. None of us stands entirely by our own efforts. Our successes are not solely ours. They are the fruits of many conditions. Our failures are not solely ours. They, too, arise from countless causes. Humility is not self-denial, it is gratitude. Gratitude for the invisible web that sustains us. Gratitude for the jewels that shine alongside us. Indra's net also teaches responsibility. Because every jewel reflects all others, our choices matter. To act with anger is to send ripples through the net. To act with compassion is to brighten the reflections. Every thought, word, and deed carries weight beyond what we imagine. This awareness does not need to overwhelm us. It can inspire us, reminding us that even the smallest kindness is not small. The smile you offer to one person reflects endlessly through the web, touching lives you may never know. As you rest here, perhaps you can feel yourself as one jewel in the net. Imagine the strands connecting you to family, friends, strangers, to the earth, to the stars themselves. See how light reflects through you and into others. See how their light returns into you. There is no separation, only the endless dance of reflection. When one jewel dims, the others shine to help it glow again. When one jewel shines, it uplifts the whole net. The lesson of Indra's net is not to dissolve individuality, but to place it in context. You are unique, yet inseparable. You shine with your own light, yet that light comes from countless sources. To know this is to move beyond isolation into belonging, beyond self-centeredness into compassion. The Buddha once said, "When this is, that island. When this ceases, that ceases." This is the truth of dependent origination, the weaving of the net. Nothing arises alone. Everything depends on conditions. When we understand this, our pride softens, our anger diminishes, and our gratitude deepens. Life is no longer a solitary struggle, but a shared journey. And so, as you breathe now, feel the strands of the net around you. Feel the countless lives that support your own. Offer them gratitude, offer them compassion, and let yourself rest in the comfort of belonging. You are never alone. You are a jewel in Indra's infinite net. But even as we see ourselves reflected in others, another question arises. Who is this self we are so eager to protect? If nothing exists independently, what of the I we cling to so fiercely? The next teaching takes us to the river, ever changing, never the same twice. There we will see how the self, too, is a flowing process, not a fixed entity. Stand on the banks of a river at dawn. The mist rises, and the water glides past in silence, endlessly flowing. If you were to place your hand in the river, pull it back, and then place it again, you would not touch the same water twice. Even if the river looks the same, its shape, its sound, its gentle curve, it is always changing, never fixed. What you see is not a thing but a process. The constant meeting of raindrops, streams, and springs, merging, moving, transforming. The Buddha often compared the self to a river. We think of ourselves as solid and permanent. I am this body, this personality, this story. But if we look closer, we see the truth of change. The body is not the same as it was yesterday. Cells die, regenerate, transform. The mind is not the same as it was a moment ago. Thoughts arise, dissolve, replaced by new ones. Even our emotions shift like clouds in the sky. There is no fixed I behind it all, only the continuous flow of conditions. Yet how tightly we cling to the idea of a fixed self. We say, "This is who I am. I am this kind of person. I cannot change." From this attachment comes pride, stubbornness, fear. When someone criticizes us, we defend fiercely, as though they have struck at something solid. When life changes our circumstances, we suffer because our identity feels threatened. But the truth is, there is no solid self to defend. Like the river, we are always flowing. This realization is not meant to diminish us. On the contrary, it frees us. If the self is not fixed, then we are not bound by our past. Mistakes do not define us forever. Failures are not permanent labels. Just as the river carries away yesterday's water, so too can we release old identities and allow new possibilities to arise. To see the self as process is to embrace growth, transformation, and freedom. Consider your own life. Think of who you were 10 years ago. Are you the same person? Your thoughts, your dreams, your struggles, how many have changed? And yet, you still call yourself by the same name. The continuity is not an unchanging core, but a flowing stream of experiences. Like a flame passed from candle to candle, the light continues, but no single flame remains the same. When we cling to a fixed self, suffering multiplies. We say, "I am an anxious person. I am a failure. I am unworthy." These identities become cages, locking us into narrow rooms. But when we release the idea of a fixed self, the doors open. We are not a noun but a verb, not a thing but a happening. We are becoming, not being. And in this becoming, there is infinite possibility. Meditation reveals this directly. Sit quietly and observe your mind. One moment you are restless, the next moment calm. One thought brings joy, another sorrow. The self shifts constantly, like water reflecting the changing sky. If you try to grasp it, it slips through your fingers. What you discover is not a solid I, but a stream of sensations, feelings, perceptions, and thoughts, arising and passing without a fixed owner. The Buddha called this anatta, non-self. To see non-self is not to erase your uniqueness. It is to see that your uniqueness arises from interdependence and change. Just as the river has its own course, shaped by mountains, rainfall, and terrain, so too your life has its own path, shaped by countless causes and conditions. But there is no eternal river. no permanent essence, only the flow. This perspective softens attachment, lessens fear, and awakens compassion. Compassion arises because when we release the fixed self, we see that others are also rivers, not statues. The person you argue with today may be different tomorrow. The person who hurt you yesterday may already be changing. When we stop freezing people into rigid identities, we give them space to transform, just as we give ourselves space. We recognize that no one is trapped forever. Everyone is in motion. This teaching also transforms how we relate to time. If we see ourselves as fixed, we panic when change arrives. Aging feels like betrayal, illness like injustice, death like an ending. But if we see ourselves as rivers, aging is simply the natural course of water flowing downstream. Illness is a shift in the current. Death is not the extinguishing of something fixed, but the merging of the river into the greater sea. There is no loss, only transformation. Imagine now that you are standing once more at the riverbank. Watch the water flow. Notice how it carries leaves, twigs, reflections of clouds. Sometimes it is calm, sometimes turbulent, but always moving. See yourself in this river. Your thoughts, emotions, and identities are the leaves and twigs carried along. Do not fear them. Do not cling to them. Allow them to flow. You are not a stagnant pond, you are a living current. There is a story of a Zen master who pointed to a flowing stream and said, "See how it never resists. See how it never clings." This is the way of the awakened heart. To live like the river is to live without fear of change, without clinging to permanence. It is to embrace the freedom of becoming. As you breathe gently now, feel your own body as a river. With each inhale, new life enters. With each exhale, old life departs. Cells renew, blood flows, thoughts shift, emotions transform. You are never the same from one moment to the next. Rest in this truth. Do not hold too tightly to who you think you are. Allow yourself to change, to flow, to become. This understanding also touches the way we seek meaning. If we believe in a fixed self, we chase permanence, achievements, possessions, legacies. We think, this will define me forever. But when we release the fixed self, meaning is no longer about permanence, it is about presence. The river does not ask to remain unchanged. It simply flows beautifully where it island. In the same way, we find meaning not in clinging to eternity, but in living fully in this moment of the stream. And so, as you drift toward rest, let this truth settle in your heart. You are not fixed. You are free to change, free to grow, free to let go of old identities and discover new horizons. Like the river, you are always moving toward the sea, even if you cannot see its end. From this flowing freedom arises another teaching, one that reshapes how we walk the path. If the self is not fixed, then striving to become someone else, to reach some final state, can never bring peace. The next lesson reveals that happiness is not found in arrival, but in the steps themselves. Let us turn now to the pilgrim and the road, and the wisdom of non-striving. There is an old story of a pilgrim who set out on a long journey toward a sacred mountain. He believed that at its summit he would find enlightenment, the end of all suffering, and the perfection of his life. With his eyes fixed firmly on the distant peak, he walked tirelessly, day after day. But in his obsession with reaching the summit, he failed to notice the beauty of the road beneath his feet, the song of birds in the morning, the fragrance of wildflowers in the fields, the kindness of strangers who offered him food and shelter. Years passed, and still the mountain seemed far away. One day, exhausted and disheartened, the pilgrim collapsed by the roadside. An old monk happened to be passing by and saw his sorrow. "Why do you suffer so?" the monk asked. The pilgrim replied, "Because I am far from the goal. I will not rest until I reach the summit." The monk smiled gently and said, "You have misunderstood. The path itself is the goal. Enlightenment is not at the mountaintop. It is in the step you are taking now." This story reveals the heart of non-striving. We often believe that happiness, peace, or fulfillment lies somewhere in the future, waiting for us at the end of great effort. We think, when I achieve this, when I own that, when I become someone else, then I will be complete. But this mindset only keeps us in endless pursuit. We strain toward an imagined future, blind to the richness of the present. Striving is not the same as effort. Effort, as we saw earlier, is necessary. Balanced effort sustains us. But striving arises from clinging, from the belief that we are incomplete until we arrive somewhere else. Non-striving does not mean we stop walking. It means we walk with awareness that each step is already whole. In meditation, this truth is clear. If you sit with the goal of forcing enlightenment, the mind grows restless. You chase silence, you demand stillness, and the harder you try, the more elusive peace becomes. But if you sit simply to sit, if you breathe simply to breathe, peace arises naturally. Non-striving in meditation is the art of allowing, not forcing. It is the recognition that we are not practicing to get somewhere else, but to fully be where we are. Think of the river we explored earlier. It flows not to reach the sea faster, but because flowing is its nature. The river's joy is in movement itself. In the same way, our lives are not only about reaching an imagined summit, they are about flowing through the ordinary beauty of each day. The laugh of a child, the warmth of sunlight, the quiet moment of rest, these are not distractions from the path, they are the path. The Buddha once said, "There is no path to happiness, happiness is the path." This does not mean we abandon goals, but that we stop postponing joy until those goals are met. The pilgrim does not need to reach the summit to find peace. He needs only to open his eyes to the blossoms by the roadside, the kindness of companions, the breath in his lungs. Ask yourself, how often do you postpone your happiness? Perhaps you say, when I earn more money, when I lose weight, when I retire, when I am loved, then I will rest. But each time you arrive at one milestone, another appears. Life becomes an endless chase, a summit always receding. Non-striving invites you to step out of this chase. It whispers, you are already here. You already belong. This moment is enough. There is deep freedom in this realization. When you stop striving, you release the burden of proving yourself. You no longer need to achieve worthiness, for worthiness is not earned by accomplishments. It is inherent in your being, like the light in the flame or the fragrance in the rose. You are already complete, even as you grow, even as you change. Non-striving also transforms how we love. If we strive to make others perfect, to mold them into our image, we miss the gift of who they are now. True love is non-striving. It does not demand change as a condition for acceptance. It embraces the unfolding of another's life, as it is, step by step, moment by moment. In your breath right now, you can taste non-striving. Do not try to make the breath deeper or smoother. Do not strive for perfection. Simply breathe and let the breath be what it island. Notice how, when you release control, The body knows how to breathe on its own. Life sustains you without demand. Peace is here, not in some distant goal. There is another story of a young monk who complained to his teacher, "I meditate and meditate, but I feel no closer to awakening. I strive every day, but it does not come." The teacher asked him, "When you play a flute, do you blow harder and harder to make music?" The monk shook his head. "No, master. If I blow too hard, the sound is harsh. If I blow too softly, there is no sound. Music comes from balance." The teacher smiled. "Exactly so. Stop striving, sit gently. Let awakening come as music comes, not forced, but allowed." The beauty of non-striving is that it does not remove purpose from life. Instead, it restores presence. You may still work, create, learn, and grow, but without the desperate belief that only the future holds your joy. The road becomes lighter because each step is valuable in itself. Imagine yourself once more as the pilgrim. The mountain looms in the distance, but now you no longer stare only at the summit. You notice the path underfoot, the rhythm of your breath, the warmth of the Sunday. You walk, not to escape this moment, but to experience it fully. Whether you reach the summit or not no longer matters, for each step is the summit itself. As you rest here, allow yourself to release the striving mind. You do not need to be anyone else in this moment. You do not need to achieve or prove. You are enough, exactly as you are, breathing in and out, listening, resting. The peace you sought is already present, like a bird's song heard when you finally stop searching for it. Non-striving is the art of arriving where you are, again and again. It is the realization that there is no future moment more sacred than this one, and when you awaken to this truth, the burden of endless chasing falls away. What remains is a gentle walk, a pilgrim smiling at the road beneath his feet. And yet, if we are to walk this road with open hands, we must learn another lesson. For there are times when letting go is not merely an act of wisdom, but of love. To release is not abandonment, it is compassion itself. Let us now turn to the image of a mother, letting go of her child's hand, the teaching of compassionate surrender. In a quiet village, a young child takes her first steps. Her mother kneels nearby, arms outstretched, ready to catch her if she falls. At first, the mother holds the child's hand tightly, guiding her across the floor. But, eventually, she loosens her grip. The child wobbles, falters, nearly tumbles, and the mother's heart aches with the urge to grab her back. Yet she does not. She allows the child to stumble forward, because she knows that only by letting go can the child learn to walk on her own. This simple act of release is a profound lesson in compassionate surrender. The mother's love does not diminish when she lets go. It deepens. Her release is not neglect, but trust. She trusts the child's strength, the body's wisdom, the process of learning. She accepts the risk of falling because she sees the greater gift that will come, the gift of independence, of freedom. In our own lives, we are often called to the same act of surrender, to release someone we love into their own journey, to let go of control, even when our hearts long to protect. It is one of the hardest forms of compassion, because it feels like loss. But true love is not about possession. It is about granting freedom. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering. When we cling to people, we bind them to our expectations. We say, "You must stay as I wish. You must fulfill my needs. You must not change." But people, like rivers, flow and transform. To cling to them is to cause both them and ourselves pain. Compassionate surrender asks us to love without chains, to open our hands and allow life to unfold. This does not mean abandoning care. The mother still kneels nearby, ready to catch the child if the fall is too great. In the same way, compassionate surrender means presence without possession, support without control. It is a balance of love and wisdom. Love that desires well-being. Wisdom that recognizes we cannot walk the path for another. Think of someone in your life you have struggled to let go of. Perhaps a child growing older, a partner choosing their own direction, a friend who must follow a path you do not understand. Your instinct may be to hold tightly, to protect them from harm, to steer their choices. But ask yourself, does your control serve them, or does it serve your fear? Sometimes the greatest act of love is to step back, to trust their journey, even if it includes mistakes. For mistakes, too, are teachers. There is a story of a farmer who raised ducks beside a river. One day, the young ducks waded into the water and were swept along by the current. The farmer panicked, running along the bank, trying to pull them out. But an elder in the village stopped him and said, "Let them swim. The river will teach them what you cannot. If you rescue them every time, they will never learn to find their way." Reluctantly, the farmer stepped back. The ducks struggled at first, but soon they learned to paddle, to dive, to rise again. In letting go, the farmer gave them the gift of their own strength. So too, in our relationships, compassionate surrender does not mean indifference. It means trusting the unfolding of life. It means acknowledging that others, like us, have their own lessons to learn, their own karma to unfold. To interfere endlessly is to rob them of growth. To let go is to honor their capacity to awaken in their own time. This teaching also applies inwardly. We often try to control ourselves harshly, demanding perfection, forcing change through willpower. But true transformation rarely comes from aggression. It comes from compassionate surrender, accepting ourselves as we are, while creating space for growth. When we let go of self-hatred, self-judgment, and unrealistic demands, we give ourselves the freedom to change naturally, like the child learning to walk. In meditation, compassionate surrender is the act of releasing control over the mind. If you try to force thoughts away, they only return stronger. If you strive to hold on to peace, it slips from your grasp. But when you sit with gentle presence, allowing thoughts and feelings to come and go, the mind settles by itself. This is surrender, not abandonment, but trust in the natural rhythm of awareness. Ask yourself now, where in your life are you holding too tightly? Where does your love disguise itself as control? Can you soften your grip just a little? Can you trust the process of another's growth, even if it looks different than you imagined? To let go is not to stop caring. It is to love so deeply that you release your need to possess. This surrender extends even to our relationship with life itself. We cannot control the unfolding of existence, the arrival of illness, the aging of the body, the certainty of death. To resist these truths is to live in constant fear. But when we surrender compassionately, we meet life with gentleness. We say, yes, things will change. Yes, I will lose what I love. But while it is here, I will cherish it fully. And when it is gone, I will let it return to the flow. There is profound peace in this acceptance. The heart softens, the hands open, the mind rests. Life is no longer a battle to be won, but a dance to be joined. As you breathe gently now, Imagine yourself holding the hand of someone you love. Feel the warmth, the connection, the bond. And then, with compassion, imagine loosening your grip, not to abandon them, but to let them walk freely. Trust that they are carried by the same river of life that carries you. Feel the tenderness of this release. This is love at its most spacious. Compassionate surrender is not easy. It asks us to release fear, to relinquish control, to trust what we cannot see. But it is the doorway to freedom for ourselves and for those we love. The mother who lets go does not lose her child. She gives her child the gift of walking. The lover who lets go does not lose love. She allows love to breathe. The seeker who lets go does not lose the path. He discovers the path beneath his very feet. And so, as night deepens around you, let yourself surrender. Surrender your worries, your clinging, your control. Place them gently in the hands of compassion. Trust that life is wiser than your fear. Trust that letting go is the highest form of love. From this spirit of surrender arises another way of being, a way of shining for others without need of recognition. Just as a lamp glows quietly in the darkness, illuminating the path for all, so too can we live with the spirit of the Bodhisattva. Let us turn now to that gentle light, the lamp in the night. On a moonless night, when the path is shrouded in darkness, a lone traveler walks uncertainly, stumbling over stones and roots. Then, in the distance, a faint glow appears, a single lamp carried by someone ahead. The lamp does not shout, it does not boast, it does not demand recognition for its light. It simply shines, and by shining, it allows others to walk more safely. The one who holds it may not even know how many travelers are guided by that glow, yet the light does its work quietly, faithfully, without condition. This is the spirit of the Bodhisattva, one who acts not for self alone, but for the benefit of all beings. In Buddhist tradition, the Bodhisattva vows not to enter final nirvana until all beings are liberated. Whether or not we formally take such vows, the spirit of the Bodhisattva is available to us each day. It is the spirit of living like the lamp in the night, shining without demand, offering without expectation, guiding without recognition. How different this is from the way the world often teaches us to live. We are told to achieve, to accumulate, to secure praise and recognition. Good deeds, we are taught, should be rewarded, and if they are not, resentment arises. But the Bodhisattva spirit asks us to step beyond this transaction. It asks, can you give without seeking return? Can you shine simply because shining is your nature? The lamp does not choose who will benefit from its glow. It does not say, I will shine for this person, but not for that one. Its light is impartial, generous, available to all. In the same way, the Bodhisattva spirit invites us to cultivate a love that does not discriminate, a kindness that does not ask, are you worthy? But simply recognizes that all beings, in their struggles and imperfections, deserve compassion. Think of the people in your own life. Some you love easily. Their presence warms your heart. Others may be difficult, prickly, even hurtful. Yet the Bodhisattva spirit reminds us that they too stumble in the dark. They too long for light. To shine only for those we find agreeable is not true compassion. To shine, even for those who challenge us, that is the lamp's true glow. There is a story of Kannon, the Bodhisattva of compassion, who is said to have 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes. Each hand reaches out to help, each eye sees the suffering of beings. Of course, no human literally has 1,000 arms or eyes. The story is a symbol. It reminds us that compassion is limitless, extending in all directions, seeing suffering wherever it exists. The Bodhisattva does not ask whether the suffering is deserved. She does not turn away because it is inconvenient. She responds simply and fully because compassion is her very essence. This spirit can live in us too. Perhaps you cannot save the world, but you can light one corner of it. A gentle word to someone who feels invisible. A patient ear for someone who feels unheard. A gesture of generosity, unseen by most, but transformative for one. Like the lamp, you may not know how far your light reaches. You may never see the lives it touches, but it matters. Every act of compassion adds brightness to the net of existence. And here lies another lesson. The Bodhisattva spirit is not about grand gestures alone. It is found in the ordinary, the daily, the quiet. A smile offered to a stranger may prevent a day of despair. A moment of patience may ease the anger of another. A choice to forgive may ripple through generations. The lamp does not need to be a blazing fire. Even a small glow can pierce the deepest dark. In meditation, the Bodhisattva spirit is cultivated through the practice of loving kindness. You sit and silently repeat, "May I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease." Then you extend it outward. May you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. First to loved ones, then to strangers, then to those you struggle with, and finally to all beings everywhere. This practice softens the heart, broadens compassion, and aligns us with the Bodhisattva path. The lamp also teaches us humility. It does not need to be recognized to shine. Too often, we tie our generosity to acknowledgement. Did they thank me? Did others notice? But true giving asks nothing in return. It is enough that the light shines. The Bodhisattva spirit frees us from the hunger for praise. It replaces it with quiet joy, the joy of seeing another's burden eased, whether or not anyone knows who lifted it. Ask yourself, where in your life can you be a lamp? Perhaps at work, where someone feels unseen. Perhaps at home, where small acts of patience are needed. Perhaps in your community, where kindness can be offered without announcement. You do not need to change the whole world. You need only to shine where you are. And in shining, you may light the way for more than you realize. Compassionate surrender, which we explored earlier, was about letting go with love. The Bodhisattva spirit expands that surrender into service. It says, "My life is not only mine, it is woven with others. As I awaken, may I help others awaken. As I heal, may I help others heal." This is not a burden, but a joy. Just as the lamp is happiest when it shines, we too find fulfillment when we live for more than ourselves. As you breathe gently now, imagine yourself holding a lamp. See its warm light illuminating the space around you. Notice how it makes the path clearer, not just for you, but for others nearby. Feel the quiet joy of shining without demand. This is the Bodhisattva spirit within you. It is not reserved for saints and sages. It is a seed already planted in every heart, waiting for the courage to glow. And yet, even the lamp's flame depends on conditions: oil, wick, air. Nothing shines alone. The Bodhisattva spirit, too, is nourished by connection, by flow, by surrender. To understand this fully, we must return once more to the river. For the river, meeting the sea, shows us that true strength lies not in resisting, but in merging. Let us now journey there to discover the Dharma of flow. High in the mountains, a river is born. It begins as melting snow, a trickle running over rocks, gathering into streams that braid together and grow. It winds through valleys, nourishes fields, carves cliffsides, and carries the stories of the land it touches. At times, it rushes with force, tumbling over boulders and rapids. At other times, it drifts quietly, reflecting the sky above. Yet no matter its path, the river holds one destiny: to meet the sea. When the river finally arrives at the shore, something extraordinary happens. It does not resist the ocean, insisting on keeping its form. It does not cling to its identity, saying, "I am only this river, and I must stay separate." Instead, it surrenders. It merges with the salt water, becoming something vaster, more expansive. In this merging, the river does not lose itself. It becomes part of something infinite. This is the Dharma of flow, the wisdom of yielding, of merging, of allowing ourselves to be carried by life into greater wholeness. Like the river, we are each on a journey shaped by countless conditions. We struggle, we pause, we adapt. Yet all along, we are flowing toward the great ocean of being. Our resistance may slow us, but the sea waits patiently, ready to receive us. We often imagine strength as resistance standing firm, unyielding, immovable. Yet the river shows us another kind of strength, the strength of flexibility. By bending, it survives. By flowing, it endures. A stone may seem harder, but in time, the river shapes the stone. Yielding is not weakness. Yielding is persistence guided by wisdom. The Buddha taught the middle way as a path of balance, neither clinging nor rejecting, neither forcing nor collapsing. This teaching is alive in the river's flow. When the river meets obstacles, it does not stop. It curves, it finds another route, it embraces change. How often do we, in our own lives, stop before the obstacle, saying, "This should not be here. This is unfair." We exhaust ourselves pushing against what is immovable. The Dharma of flow reminds us, if the rock cannot be moved, flow around it. There is always another way. Think of moments in your life when resistance hardened your heart. Perhaps you clung to a plan that failed, a dream that dissolved, a relationship that ended. In resistance, you suffered twice, first from the loss itself, and then from refusing to let it go. Now imagine those times when you allowed yourself to flow. Perhaps you accepted a new opportunity when one door closed, or softened into forgiveness when anger weighed you down. In flowing, you discovered resilience. You discovered that life continued, carrying you toward new horizons. The river's surrender at the ocean is also a teaching on ego. We cling to the sense of self, fearing its dissolution. We say, "I must be separate, unique, defined." Yet when we release this clinging, we find that merging with the greater whole does not erase us. It expands us. Just as the river does not vanish in the sea but becomes part of its vastness, so too we find liberation in realizing we are not separate from life, but expressions of it. In meditation, we can taste this merging. At first, we sit as individuals, this body, this mind, these thoughts. But as awareness deepens, the boundaries soften. Breath flows in and out, no longer mine or yours, just life breathing itself. Thoughts come and go, not possessions but passing clouds. The sense of I dissolves into spaciousness. This is not annihilation, it is freedom. It is the peace of realizing we are waves in the ocean, rising and falling, yet always water. There is a Zen saying, "The water flows, and in flowing, it becomes the path. We need not force life into a rigid design. If we allow ourselves to flow with awareness, life reveals its own path beneath us. This does not mean drifting aimlessly. It means trusting the current, adapting to its turns, and moving steadily toward the ocean of wisdom. Consider the bamboo that bends in the storm. It survives because it yields. Consider the sailor who adjusts his sails to the wind. He reaches his destination not by fighting the wind, but by working with it. In the same way, our true strength lies not in forcing life to obey us, but in harmonizing with its flow. Ask yourself now, where are you resisting the current? Perhaps you are clinging to an old identity, insisting, "This is who I must be." Perhaps you are fighting a change that has already arrived, wishing life were otherwise. Can you soften, even slightly? Can you allow yourself to flow, trusting that the current will carry you to a wider sea? There is a story of a monk who asked his teacher, "What is enlightenment?" The teacher pointed to a stream and said, "Look, it flows on, asking nothing, resisting nothing. Enlightenment is like this." The monk watched, and he understood. To awaken is not to step outside the stream of life, but to flow with it fully, without clinging, without resistance. As you breathe now, imagine yourself as a river. Feel the movement within you, the pulse of your heart, the rhythm of your breath, the stream of thoughts and sensations. Notice how everything is flowing, never still. Imagine this flow carrying you gently, guiding you toward the vast sea. You do not need to know the path. The river knows. You do not need to fear the merging. The ocean waits with infinite embrace. The Dharma of flow also teaches us compassion. When we recognize that others too are rivers on their way to the sea, we stop demanding that they be otherwise. We see their struggles as currents, their mistakes as eddies, their triumphs as rapids. We no longer judge so harshly, for we know the flow is larger than any single moment. We can meet them with patience, knowing they, too, are being carried toward the great ocean. And so, as you rest in the quiet of this night, allow yourself to yield. Let go of the need to control, to resist, to harden. Become like the river, soft yet unstoppable, yielding yet strong. Trust the current, and you will find your way. But even as we flow, there are times when words cannot capture the depth of being. There are moments when silence speaks louder than speech, when stillness carries more truth than sound. Let us now turn to that subtle power, the bell in the wind, the teaching of silence. In a quiet temple garden, a bronze bell hangs from a wooden frame. It does not ring by itself. It waits patiently, suspended in stillness, until the wind stirs. When the breeze passes, it strikes softly against the bell's edge, releasing a low, resonant tone. The sound lingers in the air, fading slowly into silence once more. The bell does not force its song. It allows the wind to awaken it. Its music arises from openness, from readiness, from stillness. This image offers us a profound teaching. Silence itself is a form of wisdom, and presence can speak without words. We live in a world that celebrates noise, constant talking, constant messaging, constant explanation. We are taught that to be silent is to be weak, that to remain still is to be invisible. Yet, the bell in the wind reveals another truth. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is fullness, depth, presence. It is the space in which true understanding blooms. Think of the most meaningful moments in your life. Were they always filled with words? Or were some of them quiet, sitting beside a loved one, watching the sunset, holding a hand in grief, gazing at the stars. In those moments, words would have been too small. Silence spoke more clearly than speech. It said, "I am here, I am with you, I am listening." The Buddha himself often taught through silence. When asked questions that were rooted in speculation about the nature of the cosmos, the eternity of the soul, he sometimes simply remained silent. This was not avoidance, it was wisdom. For some questions cannot be answered in words. They must be experienced directly. Silence was his way of pointing to the truth beyond concepts, the truth that cannot be grasped by argument but only realized in awareness. In our daily lives, silence can become a teacher if we allow it. When we sit in meditation, we may at first find silence uncomfortable. The mind races, thoughts clamor, and we long for distraction. But if we persist, the silence begins to reveal itself as spacious, soothing, alive. We discover that we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness in which thoughts rise and fall. This awareness is silent, yet it is not void. It is luminous, steady, compassionate. It is the bell before the wind. Silence also transforms relationships. How often do we rush to fill every pause in conversation, fearing that quiet means distance? Yet sometimes, silence is the deepest intimacy. To sit with another without words, without needing to entertain or impress, is to trust the connection itself. The bell does not clamor for attention, it waits. In the same way, silence allows others to reveal themselves at their own pace, to feel safe in our presence. There is a story of a master who took his disciple to a mountain peak to watch the sunrise. As the sky blazed with color, the disciple began to recite poetry, praising the beauty. But the master placed a finger to his lips and said, "Not yet, wait." They sat in silence as the sun crested the horizon. Only when the light had filled the world did the master speak. "Now, tell me what words could add to this." The disciple bowed, understanding. Some truths are diminished by words. Silence is the truest witness. Ask yourself, how do you relate to silence? Do you embrace it, or do you flee from it? In silence, we confront ourselves. We hear the unspoken fears, the buried grief, the unacknowledged desires. This can be uncomfortable, which is why many people avoid silence at all costs. But if we meet it with courage, silence becomes a mirror. It reflects what we are ready to see. It invites healing because it gives us space to listen deeply to ourselves, to others, to the world. The bell in the wind also teaches us timing. The bell does not ring at every moment. It rings when the wind comes. In the same way, wisdom is knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Words spoken at the right time can heal. Words spoken too quickly or without awareness can wound. Silence gives us the pause to choose wisely. It is the space between impulse and response, the breath before speech. In this space, freedom lives. Silence can also be resistance. When the world demands noise, constant reaction, constant opinion, choosing silence can be an act of courage. It says, "I will not be dragged by every wind of distraction. I will return to stillness." This is not withdrawal from life, but engagement from a deeper place. From silence, our actions and words carry more weight, like the bell's tone that lingers long after the strike. Consider how the natural world embodies this truth. A forest is filled with life, yet its greatest presence is silence. A mountain stands in silence for millennia, shaping the land by its stillness. The stars wheel silently above us, their vastness humbling every word. Silence is not absence, it is the ground of being. To sit in silence is to return to the source, to align ourselves with the rhythm of existence. As you breathe gently now, invite silence into your body. Notice the pause between inhale and exhale. Notice the stillness beneath the sounds around you. Imagine yourself as the bell, suspended in quiet readiness. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to ring on command. Simply be present. When the wind of life touches you, your sound will emerge naturally. Until then, rest in silence. The power of silence is this: it brings us back to presence. It strips away the noise of striving, the clutter of thought, the compulsion to prove. In silence, we remember who we are beyond roles and labels. We remember that being is enough. And so, as the night deepens, allow silence to cradle you. Let it soothe the mind, calm the body, and open the heart. Trust that within this silence, wisdom is speaking in ways words cannot. From this stillness arises another truth. Silence shows us that not all contradictions must be resolved, not all questions must be answered. Life is full of paradox, and peace comes not from solving every riddle, but from dwelling with mystery. Let us now turn to the next teaching, the moon behind clouds, the wisdom of embracing paradox. On a quiet night, a traveler looks up to the sky. The full moon has risen, luminous and whole, yet clouds drift across it, veiling its light. At times the moon shines brightly, at other times it disappears behind a thick curtain of cloud. The traveler waits, anxious for the moon to return. Yet whether seen or unseen, the moon remains whole. It is not diminished by the clouds, nor is its radiance destroyed. Its fullness persists, hidden yet unbroken. This simple image offers a profound truth. Life is filled with paradox, with situations that seem contradictory, yet are both true. We long for certainty, for clean lines and definite answers. But the Buddha's wisdom teaches that peace comes not from resolving every paradox, but from resting within them. The moon reminds us that truth can remain intact even when obscured. Clouds of confusion, grief, or doubt may pass across our lives, yet the essence of our being remains luminous. We often suffer because we demand that opposites be reconciled in favor of one side. We ask, is life joyful or sorrowful? Is the self real or not real? Is the world meaningful or meaningless? Yet the Dharma invites us to hold both sides gently, to see that life is both joy and sorrow, both real and empty, both meaningful and transient. To cling to one side and reject the other is to fight with the sky. To embrace paradox is to rest in the wholeness of the moon, clouds and all. Consider love. Love is joy, but it is also vulnerability. To open the heart is to invite happiness and pain together. If we cling only to joy, we resist the truth of loss, and our love becomes fragile. But if we accept both the sweetness of connection and the inevitability of change, our love deepens, becomes resilient. This is paradox. Love grows stronger when we accept that it will one day end. Consider freedom. Many think freedom means doing whatever we desire, yet true freedom often comes through discipline, through committing to a path, through letting go of impulses that enslave us. Freedom and discipline seem opposed, yet they are entwined. The moon behind the clouds teaches us not to fear contradiction, for contradiction often conceals a deeper harmony. The Buddha himself, often refuse to answer metaphysical questions in simple terms. When asked if the universe was finite or infinite, if the self existed or did not exist, he remained silent. His silence was not ignorance, it was compassion. He knew that clinging to rigid answers would trap the mind in duality. The truth is not a tidy conclusion, but a vast mystery that can only be lived. Paradox is not a problem to solve, but a doorway to deeper understanding. In meditation, paradox arises naturally. The mind wants stillness, yet stillness is achieved by not striving for it. The more we chase peace, the further it flees. But when we stop chasing, peace arrives of its own accord. This is the paradox of effort. We must practice, yet awakening cannot be forced. Like the moon, the truth reveals itself when we stop grasping at the clouds. Paradox also lives in our identities. We are individuals, yet we are also inseparable from the whole. We are temporary, yet we touch eternity. We are small, yet vast. To cling to one side, I am nothing, or I am everything, is to distort the truth. To hold both is to awaken to our true nature. We are like waves on the ocean, distinct for a moment, yet always water. Ask yourself, where in your life are you fighting paradox? Perhaps you want clarity in a relationship. Do they love me or not? Yet the truth may be both love present and love complicated. Perhaps you demand certainty about the future. Will I succeed or fail? Yet the truth may be that both outcomes will come in time. To embrace paradox is to loosen the grip of certainty, to allow life to be as complex as its island. There is a story of a monk who held up a flower and asked his students, "Is this flower alive or dead?" Some argued it was alive because it bloomed. Others said it was dead because it was already fading. The master smiled and said, "It is both. It is alive now, and in its living, it is already dying." The students understood. Paradox is the fabric of reality. To deny it is to deny life itself. In relationships, embracing paradox allows us to love without illusion. We can accept that someone may bring us joy and pain, closeness and distance, comfort and challenge. To demand only joy is to reject the truth of their humanity. But to accept both is to love more deeply, with eyes open. In your own heart, paradox may appear as conflicting emotions. You may feel grief and gratitude together, anger and love, fear and courage. The mind says, these cannot coexist, yet they do. To allow paradox is to give space for the fullness of being. You are not one thing. You are many things, arising together like clouds around the moon. As you breathe now, imagine the night sky above you. See the full moon shining, then drifting behind clouds. Notice how its light returns, then hides, then returns again. Feel the steadiness of the moon, the passing nature of the clouds. This is your own life, luminous and whole at its core, even when obscured. Trust that the clouds will pass. Trust that the moon remains. Embracing paradox frees us from the tyranny of certainty. It allows us to live with questions rather than rushing toward answers. It allows us to meet life with openness rather than rigidity. It teaches us that peace is not found in eliminating contradiction, but in resting within it. The Zen masters often speak in paradoxical koans. What is the sound of one hand clapping? If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. These statements are not meant to be solved intellectually. They are meant to crack the mind open, to reveal that logic alone cannot contain truth. Paradox points us beyond the limits of thought to the vastness of awareness. And so, as the night deepens, Let yourself rest in paradox. You are both strong and vulnerable, both finite and infinite, both separate and connected. You are the moon, steady and whole, and you are the clouds, shifting and uncertain. To embrace both is to embrace life. From this place of openness, another teaching emerges. If paradox shows us that truth is larger than our categories, then the world itself becomes a mirror of our inner state. Just as the lake reflects the sky above, samsara reflects the mind within. Let us turn now to the next lesson, the mirror of samsara, the reflecting lake. In a hidden valley, far from the noise of the world, there lies a lake so still it seems like glass. On clear days, the sky above appears in its depths, every cloud and star mirrored perfectly. When storms roll through, the lake trembles, rippling the reflections into distortion. Yet whether calm or turbulent, the lake itself remains only what it is: water, reflecting what passes above. This lake is a mirror for the teaching of samsara. Samsara, the cycle of birth and death, joy and sorrow, hope and despair, is not only the outer world we inhabit, it is also the inner world of our mind. Just as the lake reflects the sky, our lives reflect the state of our hearts. When the mind is restless, the world appears hostile. When the mind is calm, the world seems gentler. The reflections may change, but the nature of the lake, its capacity to reflect, remains the same. The Buddha often reminded his disciples that suffering begins not in the world itself, but in how the mind perceives the world. The outer storm is not within our control, but how we meet it island. When we forget this, we blame the reflections. The sky is cruel, the world is unfair, people are against me. But when we remember, we see that the lake need not be troubled. Even when storms pass overhead, we can maintain a stillness within. Samsara, then, becomes our teacher, showing us our own mind through the reflections it casts. Consider how easily we project our inner state outward. When we are angry, every word sounds sharp, every glance seems hostile. When we are fearful, every shadow hides a threat. When we are joyful, even small inconveniences seem light. The world has not changed, but the mirror of our mind has. To understand this is to claim a deep responsibility. We may not control samsara itself, but we can cultivate the mind that meets it. There is a story of two travelers who entered the same village on the same day. The first was bitter, carrying anger in his heart. He found the villagers cold and unfriendly, and he left cursing their name. The second was open-hearted, carrying kindness. He found the villagers warm and generous, and he left praising them. The village was the same. The mirror within each traveler created the world they saw. Samsara reflected their minds back to them. This does not mean we must deny suffering in the world. Pain, injustice, and hardship are real, like storms across the sky. But how we engage with them depends on the state of our own lake. If we meet suffering with hatred, hatred multiplies. If we meet it with compassion, healing begins. Samsara teaches us again and again that peace cannot be forced from the outside. It must begin within, then radiate outward. In meditation, this lesson becomes vivid. Sit quietly and watch the mind. Thoughts rise like clouds, emotions like storms. At times, the surface is agitated, restless, dark. But if we allow it to settle, if we refrain from stirring the waters further, clarity returns. The mind, like the lake, can reflect truth when it is still. This is why meditation is not escape, but training. It teaches us to let the ripples subside so that reality can be seen clearly. The reflecting lake also shows us impermanence. The clouds above are always changing, forming, drifting, dissolving. Likewise, the reflections in our lives, success and failure, pleasure and pain, are not permanent. To cling to them is to suffer, for they will pass regardless of our grip. To watch them with awareness is to find peace, knowing the lake itself remains. You are not the storm, nor the reflection. You are the awareness that beholds them. Ask yourself now, what does your lake reflect today? Perhaps it holds the heavy clouds of worry, the turbulence of desire, the shadows of fear. Perhaps it holds the calm light of gratitude, the quiet glow of compassion. Whatever appears, do not condemn it. See it as samsara teaching you about your own mind. Each reflection is an invitation. Look here. This is what you carry. This is what you can release. There is an old Zen story of a master who handed his disciple a bowl of water. "Shake it," he instructed. The disciple obeyed, and the water rippled. "Now look," the master said. "Can you see your reflection?" The disciple frowned. "No, master. The image is broken." The master then said, "Set the bowl down." Slowly, the water stilled, and the disciple saw his face clearly. "So it is with the mind," the master said. "In agitation, truth is distorted. In stillness, it is revealed." The mirror of samsara is not only personal, it is collective. Societies, too, reflect the state of their minds. When greed dominates, inequality grows. When fear spreads, violence follows. When compassion deepens, harmony blossoms. Each culture, each community, is a great lake reflecting the consciousness of its people. This is why our practice is not only for ourselves, but for the world. By calming our own waters, we contribute clarity to the collective mirror. Imagine now that you are standing at the edge of a great lake at night. The moon shines above, its light trembling on the surface. For a moment, the wind stirs, and the reflection shatters into fragments. Yet as the breeze subsides, the moon reappears, whole and bright. Feel this as your own mind. The storms will come, the reflections will distort, but the light itself is never broken. Your task is not to stop the wind, but to trust that stillness will return. This trust is the seed of liberation. Samsara may turn endlessly, but when we see it as mirror rather than prison, we gain freedom. Every experience, joyful or painful, becomes an opportunity to see ourselves more clearly. Suffering becomes a teacher of patience. Pleasure becomes a teacher of impermanence. Conflict becomes a teacher of compassion. The lake reflects not to punish us, but to awaken us. And so, as you breathe now, let your inner waters settle. Feel the ripples quieting. See the reflections growing clearer. Whatever arises, accept it as a message, a lesson. Do not curse the storm. Do not cling to the clear sky. Let both teach you. For in the end, the lake remains itself deep, vast, and still, even as it reflects the passing heavens. But samsara's mirror does not only reveal our present state, it also shows us the expectations we carry into the future. We often gaze into the lake, longing for reflections that are not yet there. We strive, we yearn, we demand that the waters show us what we desire. And in that very striving, the lake becomes restless again. To release this restlessness, we must learn another lesson. The art of letting go of expectations, like the ferryman midstream who loses rhythm by longing too much for the shore. A ferryman once rowed passengers across a wide and restless river. The current was strong, and the journey required steady rhythm and patience. One evening, a wealthy traveler grew impatient halfway across. He demanded that the ferryman row harder, faster, with all his strength, for he could not bear the uncertainty of drifting between two shores. The ferryman tried to obey, but in straining for the far bank, he lost his rhythm. The oars splashed clumsily, the boat rocked dangerously, and the journey became longer, not shorter. The traveler's fear of being caught in between had turned the crossing into struggle. This story is our own. We too are ferrymen of our lives, rowing between the shores of past and future. And how often do we lose our rhythm by clinging to expectations? We imagine the future must look a certain way: success, love, recognition, safety, and we strain toward it with all our might. But in our urgency, we lose balance. We row not with steadiness, but with fear. Instead of flowing with the river, we fight against it, and our journey becomes filled with turbulence. Expectations are born from desire and fear. We desire pleasure, comfort, achievement. We fear loss, rejection, failure. To protect ourselves, we construct mental blueprints of how life should unfold. We tell ourselves, by this age, I should have accomplished this. By this moment, I should feel that. When reality does not align with our designs, we suffer. The ferryman loses rhythm because he cannot accept midstream. We lose peace because we cannot accept the present. The Buddha often warned of the suffering that arises from craving and aversion. Craving is the grip of expectation demanding that life give us what we want. Aversion is its twin demanding that life remove what we dislike. Both bind us, pulling us away from the flow of reality. Freedom arises not from banishing all desire, but from loosening the grip of expectation, from rowing steadily rather than desperately. Think of times when your expectations have brought pain. Perhaps you expected a relationship to last forever, only to watch it dissolve. Perhaps you expected recognition for your efforts, only to be met with silence. Perhaps you expected life to follow a smooth path, only to stumble upon illness or loss. Each time, the suffering was not only from the event itself, but from the distance between expectation and reality. The ferryman's struggle is not the river itself, it is the fight against what the river truly island. Letting go of expectations does not mean abandoning all vision or purpose. The ferryman still rows. He does not throw down his oars and drift without direction. What changes is his relationship with the outcome. He rows with steadiness, trusting the river to carry him. He accepts that the current has its own pace, its own turns. He does not demand that the far shore appear sooner than it will. In this acceptance lies peace. In meditation, we practice this directly. We sit, and expectations arise. This session should bring calm. My mind should be silent. I should feel spiritual. When these expectations dominate, the practice becomes restless. But if we let go, if we simply sit, breathe, and notice what arises, peace comes on its own. The ferryman regains his rhythm. The boat moves smoothly, not by force, but by steadiness. This teaching also applies in relationships. We often expect others to meet our needs, to behave as we wish, to fulfill our image of who they should be. But people, like rivers, flow according to their own nature. When we release rigid expectations, we discover a deeper love, a love that embraces rather than controls. Just as the ferryman learns to trust the river, we learn to trust others as they are, not as we demand them to be. There is a Zen story of a student who asked his master, "What is enlightenment?" The master replied, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." The student protested, "But everyone eats and sleeps. That cannot be enlightenment." The master smiled and said, "No, when others eat, they are already planning what to eat tomorrow. When others sleep, they are already expecting tomorrow's troubles. Enlightenment is to eat when eating, to sleep when sleeping, to let go of expectation and be present." Ask yourself now, what expectations are you gripping? Perhaps you are rowing desperately toward a career, a relationship, an image of yourself. Perhaps you are demanding that life look different than it does. What would happen if you loosened your grip? What would happen if, instead of straining for the shore, you rowed steadily, trusting the river? Would peace arrive, not in the future, but here, midstream? The ferryman's story also teaches patience. We want the far shore, but crossing takes time. Impatience is expectation disguised as urgency. But when we slow down, the crossing itself becomes meaningful. The river is not only a barrier to overcome, it is part of the journey. The sunlight shimmering on its surface, the birds flying overhead, the cool spray of water, these are gifts we miss when we rush. Letting go of expectation allows us to see the beauty of the crossing. There is freedom in saying, "I release the demand for life to match my plans. I will act with sincerity, but I will not bind myself to outcome." This does not make us passive. It makes us alive, for when we are not trapped by expectation, we meet each moment with openness. We discover possibilities we never imagined. We learn that sometimes the river carries us to shores we did not seek, but which bless us nonetheless. As you breathe gently now, imagine yourself as the ferryman. Feel the weight of the oars in your hands, the rhythm of your strokes. Sense the pull of the current beneath you. Notice the urge to strain, to rush toward the far bank, then soften. Find the rhythm that feels steady, sustainable. Trust that each stroke carries you, even if the shore is not yet in sight. Rest in the crossing itself, knowing that midstream is not a place of danger, but of life. Letting go of expectations is a daily practice. Each morning we can say, "I will act with care, but I will not demand that life bend to me." Each evening we can reflect, did I cling to outcomes today, or did I row with steadiness? Slowly, the grip loosens, and the river feels less like an enemy, more like a companion. The ferryman's wisdom prepares us for another teaching, the truth of loss. For even when we loosen expectation, fear still lingers, fear of losing what we love. To face this fear, we must return to another image, a delicate vase, beautiful and fragile, cherished not because it will last, but because we know it is already broken. Let us now turn to that teaching, the fear of loss, the already broken vase. In a quiet village, a monk once received a beautiful porcelain vase as a gift. It was delicate, painted with blue flowers, and shimmered when the morning light touched it. The monk placed it on a shelf in his cell, and each day he admired its beauty. Yet, the more he cherished it, the more he feared losing it. When storms rattled the temple walls, he worried the vase might fall. When visitors entered, he fretted they might brush against it. His appreciation turned to anxiety, his joy shadowed by the fear of loss. One evening, his teacher entered the room, looked at the vase, and asked, "Do you know why I can enjoy this vase fully?" The monk shook his head. The teacher gently lifted the vase, gazed at it, and then said, "To me, this vase is already broken. I see its future fragments, its inevitable return to dust. and because I know it is already broken, I can love it completely now. This is the teaching of the already broken vase. Everything we love, every object, every relationship, even our own bodies is fragile. They will change, decay, and eventually be lost. To cling to them as permanent is to live in fear. But when we accept impermanence, when we embrace the truth that all things are already broken, fear gives way to gratitude. We no longer hold tightly in desperation. We hold gently, with love. Fear of loss haunts us. We fear losing loved ones, wealth, health, identity, even moments of happiness. Our culture encourages us to fight this fear by building walls, by accumulating possessions, chasing security, clinging to youth. Yet no wall is high enough to stop time. The vase will one day shatter, no matter how tightly we guard it. To live in denial is to live in anxiety. To live in acceptance is to live in peace. This teaching does not ask us to stop loving. On the contrary, it asks us to love more deeply, because we know each moment is precious. When we see the vase as already broken, we marvel at its beauty while it lasts. When we see our loved ones as impermanent, we cherish each day with them instead of taking them for granted. When we see our own life as fragile, we stop wasting time on resentment or distraction. We awaken to the miracle of being here, now. There is a story of a Zen master who held a cup of tea before his students. He said, "This cup is already broken. It may fall tomorrow, or a year from now, or 100 years from now. But in my heart, it is already gone. So, while it is here, I enjoy it completely, its shape, its texture, its usefulness. When it finally breaks, I will say, 'Ah, of course.'" The students understood. Acceptance of impermanence does not diminish love. It perfects it. Think of the people in your own life. How often do you act as though they will be here forever? How often do you postpone words of gratitude or forgiveness, believing there will be time later? But if we remember that every vase is already broken, every life already destined to end, we live differently. We speak our love now. We forgive sooner. We waste less time on trivial complaints. The fragility of life sharpens our awareness of its value. Meditation on death and impermanence is a central practice in Buddhism. It may seem morbid at first, but its purpose is to awaken gratitude. By contemplating the inevitability of loss, we loosen our grip on fear. We see that clinging cannot save us, but awareness can free us. The monk who sees the vase as already broken does not despair, he smiles more deeply. The awareness of impermanence becomes a source of joy, not sorrow. Ask yourself, what vases are you guarding in your life? Perhaps it is your health, your career, your relationships, your possessions. Can you begin to see them as already broken, not to devalue them, but to love them more fully while they last? This shift transforms fear into appreciation. It turns anxiety into presence. It turns every moment into a blessing. There is another layer to this teaching. When we see that everything is already broken, we also see that loss is not the end. The shards of the vase return to the earth, becoming part of new forms. A loved one who passes lives on, in memory, in influence, in the hearts they touched. Even our bodies, when they return to dust, nourish the soil for future life. The breaking is not final destruction, it is transformation. To accept the already broken is to trust the cycle of change. In Japanese art, there is a practice called kintsugi, the repairing of broken pottery with gold. The cracks are not hidden but highlighted, turning the object into something even more beautiful. This, too, is the spirit of the teaching. When loss comes, when things break, we need not despair. We can honor the cracks, weave them into our lives, and find new beauty in the mending. The fear of loss becomes the courage to love through change. As you breathe gently now, imagine yourself holding a vase. See its delicate shape, its fragile lines. Feel the instinct to guard it tightly. Then, imagine it already broken, shards scattered on the ground. At first, grief may arise. But then, notice how this awareness frees you. You can admire it now without fear, knowing it was never meant to last forever. You can love it without clinging, cherish it without anxiety. Let this awareness extend to your life, your loved ones, your own body. All are fragile, all are precious, all are already broken. This practice is not about cold detachment, but warm presence. The teacher who saw the vase as already broken did not stop admiring it. He admired it more deeply. He savored its beauty without fear of loss. In the same way, when we see impermanence clearly, we love more fiercely, more tenderly, more sincerely. The fear of loss dissolves into gratitude for the gift of the present. And so, as the night deepens, let this truth settle in your heart. Nothing you love will last forever. And because of that, everything you love matters infinitely more. Do not wait. Cherish it now. Speak your love. Offer your gratitude. Live fully, for the vase is already broken, and that is why it shines so brightly. From this acceptance of fragility arises yet another teaching, gratitude itself. For when we see how fleeting life is, we awaken to the small blessings we once ignored: the sparkle of dew, the kindness of a stranger, the breath in our lungs. Let us now turn to the next lesson, the morning dew and the sacredness of gratitude. At dawn, before the sun has risen high, the grass glimmers with 1,000 tiny jewels. Each blade holds a droplet of dew, round and delicate, sparkling with the colors of the hidden rainbow. For a brief hour, the world looks as though it is crowned in diamonds. Then the sun rises higher, and the droplets vanish into the air, leaving no trace behind. This is the gift of the morning dew. It appears suddenly, shines brilliantly, and disappears without warning. We cannot command it to stay. We cannot hold it in our hands without breaking it. And yet, its very fragility is what makes it beautiful. It is the perfect teacher of gratitude. Gratitude is not about clinging to what we have, nor about pretending that loss will not come. It is about recognizing the preciousness of each moment precisely because it will not last. Just as we marvel at the dew because it is fleeting, we can marvel at our lives because they are impermanent. Gratitude is the heart's response to impermanence. It transforms fear of loss into joy in presence. Too often, we live as though blessings are permanent. We wake in the morning, breathe air into our lungs, see light with our eyes, and we assume these gifts will always be there. We eat food without thinking of the soil, the rain, the hands that prepared it. We speak to loved ones without realizing how miraculous their presence truly island. We walk past the morning dew without ever pausing to see its shine. And then, when these things are gone, we awaken, but it is too late. The Buddha once said, "You could search the whole world and never find anyone more deserving of your love than yourself." And in the same way, every being deserves your love. Gratitude is born from this recognition. It is not selective. It sees the sacred in the ordinary, the miraculous in the mundane. It bows to the breath, to the body, to the earth itself. Consider your own life. What do you take for granted? The roof above your head, the warmth of your bed, the voice of a friend, the fact that your heart beats moment after moment without your effort. These are morning dewdrops, shimmering quietly, waiting for you to notice. Gratitude is the act of seeing them before the sun of impermanence takes them away. There is a story of a teacher who instructed his students to keep a small stone in their pocket. Each day, whenever they touched it, they were to pause and name something they were grateful for. At first, the students listed obvious things: health, family, food. But as days passed, their gratitude deepened. They began to thank the sound of rain, the kindness of strangers, even the lessons of hardship. In this practice, they learned that gratitude is not limited to moments of joy. It can also embrace the bittersweet and the painful. For even suffering teaches, even sorrow deepens the heart. Gratitude does not deny suffering. It does not ask us to pretend everything is pleasant. Instead, it widens our vision. It says, yes, there is pain, and yes, there is also beauty. Both exist together. To practice gratitude is to hold paradox, as we saw earlier. It is to stand in the rain and still marvel at the glimmer of dew. In meditation, gratitude becomes a way of opening the heart. You sit quietly, breathe in, and say to yourself, thank you for this breath. You breathe out and say, thank you for this release. You place your hand over your heart and feel its steady rhythm. Thank you. Each sensation becomes a doorway to wonder. This is not sentimental. It is profound realism. Gratitude recognizes the miracle of being alive, here, now. Ask yourself, how would your life change if you lived as though every dewdrop mattered? Would you rush through mornings, or would you pause to listen to the birds? Would you speak harshly to loved ones, or would you soften your voice, knowing each word may be the last? Would you spend hours in distraction, or would you open your eyes to the miracle of this very moment? Gratitude changes how we live, because it teaches us that nothing is guaranteed. There is another story. A disciple asked his master how to find happiness. The master handed him a cup of water and said, drink this as though it were the last cup you will ever hold. The disciple drank, slowly, carefully, savoring each drop. When he finished, he smiled. Master, he said, the water has never tasted so sweet. The master replied, that sweetness is gratitude. It was always there, you simply forgot to taste it. Gratitude also softens fear. When we fear the future, we lose ourselves in what might happen. Gratitude brings us back to what is happening. When we fear loss, gratitude anchors us in presence. It says, yes, this will end. But right now, it is here. Right now, it is a gift. Fear looks forward. Gratitude looks inward, and now. As you breathe gently, imagine yourself standing in a meadow at dawn. The grass is cool beneath your feet. The air is crisp, alive. All around you, the dew sparkles in silence. Each drop is perfect, unique, fleeting. Feel gratitude rise within you, not only for the dew, but for the breath, the body, the moment. Whisper softly, thank you. Let this thankfulness spread to everything. Thank you for my struggles, for they have taught me. Thank you for my joys, for they have nourished me. Thank you for this moment, for it is all I have, and it is enough. Gratitude is not an occasional practice. It is a way of being. When it takes root in the heart, life itself becomes prayer. Every step, every word, every gesture becomes an offering. The ordinary becomes sacred, the fleeting becomes beautiful, the broken becomes whole. And so, as the night deepens, Let gratitude be your companion. Let it rest in your chest, like a warm ember, glowing quietly. Let it remind you that each breath, each heartbeat, each dewdrop is a gift beyond measure. The morning dew will vanish, but gratitude will remain, turning each moment into treasure. From this place of gratitude, another lesson arises. For when gratitude meets anger, something extraordinary happens. Anger cannot survive when we refuse to accept its gift. Just as one may offer a present that is not taken, anger returns to the giver. Let us now turn to that teaching, non-reactivity, the wisdom of refusing the gift. There is a famous story from the Buddha's life. One day, while walking through a village, he encountered a man who despised him. The man shouted insults, hurled accusations, and tried to provoke the Buddha into anger. But the Buddha remained calm, his expression serene. After exhausting himself, the man demanded, "Why do you not respond? Do you not hear my words?" The Buddha looked at him kindly and asked, "If someone offers you a gift, and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man paused. "To the one who tried to give it," he admitted. "Just so," said the Buddha. "You have offered me your anger, but I do not accept it. It remains with you." This is the teaching of non-reactivity. In life, people will offer us many gifts: anger, blame, jealousy, criticism. If we accept them, they become ours to carry. If we refuse, they return to the giver. The choice is always ours. Reactivity is the instinct to grab these gifts without thinking. Someone insults us, and we strike back. Someone cuts us off in traffic, and we rage. Someone questions us, and we defend fiercely. We react not because we must, but because habit enslaves us. Non-reactivity is the freedom to pause, to choose whether to accept or decline what is being handed to us. It is the mastery of our own mind. This does not mean we become passive or indifferent. It does not mean we never act. Non-reactivity is not inaction. It is wise action. When we refuse the gift of anger, we are free to respond with clarity. When we refuse the gift of hatred, we can respond with compassion. It is not about doing nothing. It is about doing what is skillful rather than what is impulsive. Think of a time when you reacted in anger. Perhaps someone criticized you, and you snapped back. Later, you may have regretted your words. The anger you accepted became yours, burning in your chest long after the exchange ended. Now, think of a time when you remained calm in the face of provocation. Perhaps you took a breath, let the moment pass, and chose silence. Notice how much lighter you felt. The anger remained with the other. You walked away free. The Buddha likened anger to grasping a burning coal with the intent of throwing it at another. You may or may not strike them, but you are certain to burn yourself. Non-reactivity is the wisdom of releasing the coal before it harms you. In meditation, this practice is central. Thoughts arise, some pleasant, some painful. The reactive mind grasps the pleasant and resists the painful, creating endless agitation. But when we practice non-reactivity, we simply observe. A thought of anger comes, we notice it. We breathe. We let it go. A thought of fear comes, we notice it. We breathe. We let it go. The thoughts remain gifts offered by the mind, but we do not need to accept them. In this way, meditation trains us to carry this skill into daily life. There is a story of two monks walking along a muddy road. A traveler shouted at them, mocking their robes and their vows. One monk grew red with anger and muttered curses as they walked on. The other walked silently, his face calm. After a long while, the angry monk demanded, "How can you stay so calm after what that man said?" The other replied, "He placed a heavy burden on the road, but I chose not to pick it up. Why should I carry his words on my back?" Non-reactivity is this refusal to carry unnecessary burdens. The world places many loads before us, but not all are ours to bear. Ask yourself now, what gifts of anger have you been accepting lately? Whose words, whose moods, whose judgments have you carried inside you? Imagine yourself placing them down. You need not keep them. They were never truly yours. You can decline them as gently as the Buddha declined the insults. This practice also transforms relationships. When we react to every provocation, conflict escalates endlessly. But when we refuse, the chain breaks. Anger offered, anger declined, peace remains. This does not mean we allow harm to continue unchecked. It means we act from wisdom rather than reflex. We may still set boundaries, speak truth, or defend justice. But we do so without carrying the poison of anger in our hearts. There is power in the pause. Between the stimulus and the response lies a small space. In that space, freedom lives. Non-reactivity is expanding that space, breathing into it, and choosing wisely. The reactive mind rushes to fill silence with words, but the wise mind waits, listens, and acts with care. As you breathe now, feel that pause within you. Imagine someone handing you a gift of anger. See it clearly, wrapped in heat and harshness. Instead of grasping it, smile gently. Place your hands behind your back. Let the gift fall harmlessly to the ground. Feel the freedom of walking away without carrying it. Non-reactivity is not only about anger from others, it also applies to the storms within. Our own minds hand us many gifts: doubt, jealousy, self-criticism. We often accept them immediately, believing them to be true. But what if we practiced refusal here too? When the mind whispers, "You are not enough," we can say, "I do not accept this gift." When it shouts, "You will fail," we can smile and decline. Slowly, we learn that not every thought deserves our acceptance. This refusal is not denial, it is wisdom. We acknowledge the gift exists, but we choose not to make it ours. We let it pass, like a cloud across the sky. There is a deep peace in living this way. Life becomes lighter because we carry only what is ours. We stop taking ownership of every insult, every criticism, every fleeting judgment. We discover that we are not defined by the anger of others, nor by the doubts of our own mind. We are defined by the awareness that sees clearly and chooses wisely. As night deepens, let this teaching settle in your heart. You are free to refuse the gifts that harm you. You are free to pause before reacting. You are free to act from compassion rather than impulse. The next time anger is offered to you, remember the Buddha's smile. Remember the weight you do not need to carry. And from this refusal arises another freedom, the strength to release burdens we have already taken on. For sometimes we have carried heavy loads for years: guilt, regret, sorrow, resentment. The next teaching shows us how to set them down, like a traveler who realizes the burden on his back was never necessary. Let us turn now to that image. The strength of release, the act of setting down the burden. There is a parable told of a weary traveler. He walked a long and dusty road with a heavy sack slung across his shoulders. Day after day he trudged forward, his back aching, his feet blistered. At night he lay down to sleep, but he never put the sack aside. He clung to it as though his very survival depended on it. Other travelers asked him, "What do you carry that is so important?" He never looked inside. He only shrugged and said, "It is mine. I must not let it go." One evening, stumbling beneath the weight, the traveler finally opened the sack. To his surprise, it was filled not with treasure, but with Stone's old memories, unhealed wounds, regrets, grudges. He had carried them for years, believing them necessary. With trembling hands, he placed the sack down by the roadside. For the first time, he stood tall, breathed deeply, and felt the freedom of walking unburdened. This story is our own. How many of us carry burdens we need not bear? We cling to past mistakes, replaying them endlessly. We carry resentment, rehearsing arguments that ended long ago. We shoulder the weight of guilt, shame, and fear, telling ourselves, "I cannot put this down, it defines me." Yet when we finally look closely, we see that the sack contains only stones. The strength we need is not the strength to keep carrying, but the strength to release. The Buddha compared this to carrying a heavy log. If you cling to it while crossing the river, it may help you float. But once you reach the far shore, to keep carrying it is foolish. It served its purpose. Now it is time to leave it behind. Many of the burdens we carry were once survival tools, habits, defenses, identities that protected us. But when the conditions change, they become weights. To recognize this is wisdom. To put them down is liberation. Why do we struggle to release? Because we confuse letting go with losing. We think, if I forgive, I lose justice. If I release this memory, I lose part of myself. If I stop carrying grief, I betray the one I lost. But release is not erasure. The memory remains, the lesson remains, the love remains. What is released is the weight, the tightness, the endless repetition of pain. The stones remain in the world, but no longer on our back. There is a story of two monks who came to a river where a woman stood unable to cross. One monk lifted her onto his shoulders, carried her across, and set her down. The monks continued walking. Hours later, the other monk burst out, "Why did you carry that woman? We monks must not touch women." The first monk replied, "I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This is the essence of release, to put down the burden once it has served its purpose, rather than carrying it in the mind forever. Think of your own burdens. What grudges do you carry, heavy and sharp? What regrets lie in your sack, weighing you down? What fears about the future do you replay, though they have not yet come to pass? Imagine yourself placing that sack down, just for a moment. Feel your spine straighten, your breath deepen. Notice the freedom that arises not from solving everything, but simply from letting go. In meditation, we practice release with each breath. Inhale, receive. Exhale, let go. The body itself teaches this rhythm. If you tried to hold every breath, you would suffocate. Release is not weakness, it is survival. In the same way, if we hold every thought, every hurt, every fear, we suffocate the heart. Each exhale is an invitation to trust. You can let go and still live. You can let go and live more fully. There is another story of a disciple who asked his master, "How can I find peace?" The master handed him a glass of water with salt stirred in. "Drink," he said. The disciple sipped, and the water was bitter. Then the master led him to a river and asked him to drink again. The disciple drank, and the water was sweet. The master said, "Your pain is like salt. If you carry it in a small glass, it poisons everything. If you release it into the vast river, it loses its power. Widen your heart. Let go into the flow. Release is not always sudden. Sometimes it is gradual, like setting down one stone at a time. A breath of forgiveness here, a moment of acceptance there. Over time, the sack grows lighter. The strength of release is not in one dramatic gesture, but in steady practice, day by day, choosing not to pick up what you have already placed down. Ask yourself, what would your life feel like if you released one burden today? Perhaps it is forgiving yourself for a mistake. Perhaps it is forgiving someone else. Perhaps it is releasing the demand that life be other than it island. What weight could you put down, even for a moment, to walk more freely? As you breathe gently now, imagine yourself standing by the roadside with a heavy sack. Feel the weight on your shoulders, then see yourself lowering it to the ground. Step away, take a breath, walk forward. Notice how light your body feels, how open your chest, how steady your stride. The road has not changed, but your journey has. This is the strength of release. Release is not abandonment, it is trust. Trust that you will carry what you need when you need it. Trust that life will give you new tools when the time is right. Trust that freedom lies not in clinging, but in letting go. The sack of stones was never your essence. Your essence is the walker, the traveler, the awareness moving steadily forward. And so, as the night deepens, let yourself practice release. With each exhale, imagine placing one stone down. A regret, an anger, a fear. Place them on the roadside. Continue walking with lighter steps. This is the strength of release, the courage not to carry what no longer serves you. From this lightness, another teaching emerges. For when the mind grows still, free of heavy burdens, it begins to hear subtler truths, like the silence of a meadow at dusk, where even the smallest sound can be heard. We discover a deeper wisdom in stillness. Let us turn now to that lesson, the cricket in the night and the wisdom of stillness. One summer evening, a monk walked with his disciple along a forest path. The cicadas had quieted, the sun had set, and the world was wrapped in dusk. The disciple complained, "Master, I cannot still my mind. It is filled with noise, with restless thoughts, with worries that never end. I meditate, but all I hear is chaos inside me." The master stopped, closed his eyes, and asked, "What do you hear now?" The disciple listened and said, "Nothing, Master, only silence." The master smiled. "Listen again." After a pause, the disciple's eyes widened. From deep in the grass came the faint chirp of a single cricket, steady and clear. The master said, "The cricket was always singing. You could not hear it because your mind was too loud. When you quiet the noise within, you will hear what has always been present." This is the wisdom of stillness, the ability to perceive truths too subtle for a restless mind. Like the cricket, wisdom speaks softly. It does not shout above the noise. It waits patiently for us to be still enough to listen. We live in a world overflowing with noise, literal and metaphorical. Conversations, advertisements, headlines, notifications, thoughts about the past, anxieties about the future. The mind becomes a crowded marketplace, every voice demanding attention. In such a place, the voice of wisdom is drowned out. But when we cultivate stillness, even for a moment, we begin to hear the cricket. We begin to hear the truth beneath the noise. Stillness is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of agitation. Even in the midst of noise, the heart can be still. The river may rush, but beneath its surface lies depth. The forest may echo with bird song, but the trees remain rooted and unmoved. The challenge is not to silence the world, but to still the mind that resists it. In meditation, this stillness grows naturally. At first, thoughts chatter endlessly. We think, "This is useless, I cannot calm down." But slowly, as we breathe, as we let thoughts rise and pass without grasping, the mind begins to settle. Like muddy water placed in a jar, the particles sink, and clarity returns. In that clarity, we hear the cricket, the subtle truths of the heart, the quiet wisdom of awareness. The Buddha compared the mind to a lute. When the string is too tight, it produces no music. When it is too loose, it cannot sing. But when tuned just right, its sound is pure. Stillness is this tuning, not rigid suppression of thought, nor chaotic indulgence, but gentle balance. It is the steady hum beneath the fluctuations of the mind. Consider how stillness transforms perception. When the mind is restless, we overlook details. We fail to notice the kindness of a stranger, the beauty of a tree, the depth of our own breath. But when still, we see with new eyes. The cricket becomes audible. The stars, unnoticed before, fill the sky. The presence of a loved one becomes radiant. Stillness is not empty. It is overflowing with awareness. There is a story of a Zen teacher who asked his students to listen to the sound of one hand clapping. The students struggled, trying to imagine, to force an answer. Finally, one sat quietly, breathing deeply, releasing the effort to solve. In the silence of his mind, he heard the faint sound of wind rustling through the leaves, the sound of his own heartbeat. He understood. The sound of one hand is not found through striving, but through stillness. Ask yourself, how often do you allow silence in your day? How often do you turn off the noise, set aside the phone, pause from the rush? Even a few breaths of stillness can shift the entire landscape of the mind. It is in these pauses that the cricket sings, that wisdom reveals itself. Stillness also brings healing. A wound cannot close if it is constantly disturbed. The body heals when we rest. In the same way, the heart heals in stillness. When we stop stirring the waters of pain with endless analysis, when we allow grief or fear to simply be, they begin to soften. Stillness does not erase suffering, but it gives suffering space to transform. There is another story. A disciple asked his master, "What is the essence of the practice?" The master replied, "Sit quietly and do nothing." The disciple frowned, "But how will I change?" The master said, "The grass grows by itself. The sun rises without your command. Transformation comes not by force but by stillness." In relationships too, stillness is wisdom. When conflict arises, our instinct is to react immediately, to defend, to argue. But often, silence speaks more powerfully than words. A pause, a breath, a moment of stillness can prevent escalation and open space for understanding. Like the cricket, the truth may be faint, but if we listen quietly, we can hear it. As you breathe now, imagine yourself sitting in a meadow at dusk. At first, all seems silent. Then, slowly, you hear it, the steady chirp of a cricket, persistent yet gentle. It has been singing all along, waiting for your stillness to reveal it. Let this sound symbolize the wisdom within you, always present, waiting patiently for you to quiet the noise. The wisdom of stillness is not found in retreat alone. It can be carried into daily life. washing dishes, walking, listening. Even in the midst of activity, stillness can live in the heart. It is the calm center within the spinning wheel, the silent witness beneath the rushing stream. When you cultivate this stillness, the world no longer overwhelms you. You move through life with clarity, anchored like the lake that reflects the sky. And so, as night deepens, let this lesson rest within you. Stillness is not emptiness, but fullness. In stillness, the cricket sings, truth emerges, healing unfolds. You do not need to chase wisdom, it is already here. You need only to be quiet enough to hear it. From this quiet wisdom flows another realization. Stillness reveals the sacredness of the ordinary. When we are present, even the simplest joys, moonlight spilling through a window, the fragrance of tea, the laughter of a friend, become treasures. Let us turn now to the next teaching. The beauty of simple joy. Like moonlight through the window. A small cottage stands at the edge of a forest. Its walls are plain, its floor made of worn wood, its furnishings modest. On a quiet night, the moon rises above the trees and pours its light through the single window. Suddenly, the humble room is transformed. The floor glows silver, the air feels hushed, the world seems sacred. The cottage has no riches, yet in that moment it holds a treasure greater than gold, the gift of simple joy. This is the lesson of moonlight through the window. Joy is not always found in grand achievements or possessions. More often, it waits quietly in the ordinary moments of life, overlooked by a restless mind. When we are still enough to notice, when gratitude fills our hearts, we discover that simple joys are everywhere. The Buddha taught that suffering arises when we crave endlessly, always chasing what we do not have. Yet, liberation begins when we see clearly what is already here. Moonlight does not cost us anything. It does not need to be earned. It simply shines, offering beauty to anyone who opens their eyes. The challenge is not to acquire more, but to awaken to the gifts already surrounding us. Consider your own life. How often do you pass through moments of quiet beauty without noticing? The taste of fresh water on a hot day, the sound of rain tapping on the roof, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the smile of a child, the touch of a friend, the silence of early morning. These are the moonlights of daily life, illuminating our hearts if we let them. Why then do we so often miss them? Because the mind races ahead, chasing what is next. We say, I will be happy when I have more money, when I achieve my goals, when my problems are solved. Yet even when those things arrive, happiness slips away because the mind has already leapt forward again. The window is filled with moonlight, but we are too busy searching for the sun to notice. There is a Zen story of a monk who was asked what enlightenment was like. He replied, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." The questioner scoffed, "But everyone does that." The monk said, "No, not like this. When others eat, their minds are elsewhere. When others sleep, they dream of tomorrow. Enlightenment is to eat when eating, to sleep when sleeping, to be fully present with the simplest joys." Simple joy arises not from extravagance but from presence. It is the joy of tasting tea without distraction, the joy of watching the wind move through leaves, the joy of feeling your breath rise and fall, carrying life through your body. It is always available, but it requires us to pause, to notice, to savor. Meditation deepens this capacity. When we sit quietly, we may notice small sensations, the softness of the breath, the beating of the heart, the hum of life in each cell. At first, they seem unremarkable, but as awareness sharpens, these sensations become luminous, radiant with wonder. The body itself is a miracle. Awareness itself is joy. Moonlight through the window becomes the breath through the body. Simple joy also transforms relationships. We often expect grand gestures, dramatic expressions of love. Yet the deepest happiness often comes from small acts, a hand held in silence, a shared meal, laughter over something trivial. When we release our demands for constant excitement, we learn to cherish the ordinary. The moonlight through the window is not fireworks in the sky, but its beauty endures far longer. Ask yourself now, what simple joys have you overlooked today? Perhaps the taste of fruit, the rhythm of rain, the comfort of lying down to rest. Can you pause, even for a moment, to let them shine through your awareness? Can you open the window of your heart to the moonlight already pouring in? There is a story of a poor man who envied his wealthy neighbor. One night, the poor man sat alone, bitter and restless. Suddenly the moonlight filled his room, and he saw its glow transform his modest home. He laughed and said, "My neighbor can buy lanterns of gold, but tonight the heavens have given me light for free." His envy dissolved into joy. From that night, he sought wealth no more, for he had discovered treasure in the simplest of gifts. This is not to deny hardship. Life contains pain, uncertainty, struggle. But even in suffering, simple joys can be found. A prisoner may still hear birdsong through the bars. The sick may still feel the coolness of water on their lips. The grieving may still find comfort in a gentle touch. These moments do not erase pain, but they soften it. They remind us that beauty is never absent, even in darkness. As you breathe now, imagine yourself sitting in a quiet room. The window is open, and the moonlight spills across the floor. You have no riches, no achievements, no distractions, only this glow. Feel the peace it brings. Feel the way it illuminates not only the room, but your heart. This is simple joy, to be alive, to be aware, to see beauty in what is already here. Simple joy is also a teacher of humility. We realize that happiness does not come from owning more, but from noticing more. The dew, the moon, the cricket, the river, each whispers the same truth. You do not need to conquer the world to be content. You need only to open your eyes. And so, let this teaching rest within you. Happiness is not hidden in distant achievements, but present in ordinary moments. Moonlight through the window, breath in the body, kindness in a glance. These are treasures beyond price. To live with simple joy is to live awake. From this awakening arises another strength, flexibility. For when we learn to find joy in simplicity, we are no longer rigidly dependent on circumstances. Like bamboo in the storm, we bend and survive. Let us now turn to the next teaching, the gift of flexibility as embodied by the bamboo in the storm. In a remote mountain valley, a fierce storm once swept through. The winds tore at the earth, howling with unrelenting force. Trees that had stood tall for centuries cracked and splintered under the pressure. Oaks, proud and unyielding, were uprooted, their heavy branches shattered across the ground. Yet, among the devastation, one plant endured. The bamboo. It bent low beneath the gusts, bowing almost to the ground, but it did not break. When the storm passed, the bamboo stood upright once more, green and alive, its leaves trembling in the calm. This is the teaching of flexibility. Strength does not always mean standing rigid against every force. Sometimes strength is found in bending, in yielding, in adapting. The bamboo shows us that survival and even growth comes not from resisting the inevitable storms of life, but from moving with them. How often, in our lives, do we cling to rigidity? We say, "This is how things must be. This is who I am. This is the only way forward." When change arrives, as it always does, we resist with all our might. But, like the oak in the storm, our unyielding stance leaves us vulnerable to breaking. Flexibility does not mean weakness, it means resilience. It is the wisdom of the bamboo. To bow without surrender, to bend without losing oneself. The Buddha described the middle path as one of balance and adaptability. To walk it requires flexibility of mind and heart. Life is never static. Conditions shift constantly. To cling to fixed ideas, identities, or expectations is to invite suffering. But to remain open, to adjust as conditions change, is to remain free. Consider relationships. When we demand that others never change, we create conflict. We cling to an image of who they once were, and we suffer when reality shifts. But if we approach relationships with flexibility, we allow room for growth. We accept that people evolve, that love itself changes form. Flexibility makes space for renewal. Consider your own identity. How often have you said, "I am just this kind of person"? Perhaps you label yourself anxious, or shy, or unworthy. But these are rigid definitions, and they bind you. Flexibility invites you to see yourself as a process, always becoming. Today you may be anxious, but tomorrow you may be courageous. Today you may stumble, but tomorrow you may rise. Like bamboo, you are not fixed, you are alive, and aliveness means change. There is a story of a disciple who clung fiercely to rules. He followed every ritual, every form, convinced that strict adherence was the path to awakening. One day, his master asked him to sit in meditation while the rain poured outside. The disciple sat rigidly, unwilling to move, though water soaked his robes. At last, the master approached and said, "You are like a tree that refuses to bend. Do you not see that wisdom is not in stiffness but in harmony? Be like bamboo. It bows to the rain, and so it thrives." The disciple understood. Discipline without flexibility becomes prison, not liberation. Flexibility is also the key to creativity. When the mind is rigid, it cannot see beyond its narrow expectations. But when flexible, the mind finds new paths, new solutions. The bamboo bends in 100 directions, yet always remains rooted. In the same way, flexibility allows us to explore without losing our grounding. It is not chaos, it is freedom within stability. Ask yourself, where in your life are you too rigid? Perhaps you resist a change at work, a shift in health, a transition in family. Perhaps you cling to old habits or beliefs, even when they no longer serve you. What would it feel like to bend, to adjust, to say, "I can adapt, I can find a new way"? This is the gift of flexibility, the power to endure by moving with life rather than against it. In meditation, flexibility shows itself in the attitude of the heart. Sometimes the mind wanders, sometimes restlessness or drowsiness arises. A rigid meditator scolds himself, grows frustrated, and suffers. But a flexible meditator smiles gently, notes what has happened, and returns to the breath. No force, no punishment, only adaptability. Over time, this flexibility becomes compassion for oneself and for others. The bamboo's lesson also speaks to how we endure suffering. Pain is inevitable, but suffering often comes from our refusal to bend. We say, "This should not be happening. I cannot accept this." Yet when we soften, when we allow ourselves to bend with the storm, we discover resilience. The pain remains, but it does not break us. We rise again, like bamboo after the wind. There is another story. A farmer's crop was destroyed by flood. His neighbors lamented, saying, "Such misfortune." But the farmer only bowed his head and replanted what remained. Seasons passed, and though his field was smaller, it thrived with new crops suited to the wetter soil. His flexibility turned disaster into renewal. Had he clung to the past, insisting that things remain as they were, he would have been crushed. Instead, he bent with change, and in bending, survived. As you breathe gently now, imagine yourself as bamboo in the storm. Feel the wind of life pushing, demanding, changing. Instead of resisting, let yourself bend. Feel the strength in your flexibility, the resilience in your yielding. The storm passes, as all storms do, and you rise again, upright and alive. Notice how light you feel when you stop fighting what is beyond your control. Flexibility is not surrendering values or abandoning truth. It is the skill of applying truth wisely in changing conditions. Bamboo bends but does not uproot. It sways but does not snap. In the same way, we can remain grounded in compassion and awareness while flexible in how we express them. This is true strength, the ability to remain whole by being willing to change. And so, let this lesson remain in your heart. Be like bamboo. Bow when the winds of life demand it, and rise again when calm returns. Bend without breaking, yield without losing yourself. Flexibility is not weakness. It is the gift that allows you to endure, to thrive, to dance with the storms of existence. From this gift arises another teaching. For when we recognize our flexibility, we also realize the power of choice. We may not control the storm, but we can choose how we respond. We can choose anger or compassion, resistance or acceptance. The next lesson invites us to this doorway of choice, the gates of heaven and hell, which open and close with a single thought. There is an old story from the Zen tradition. A fierce samurai, known for his temper, once sought out a wise monk. Standing tall, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, the warrior demanded, "Tell me, monk, what is heaven? What is hell?" The monk looked up at him and said with calm disdain, You are nothing but a brute. You waste your life in violence. Why would I waste my teaching on someone like you?" The samurai's face flushed with rage. His hand tightened on his sword, ready to strike. The monk remained unafraid. "See that?" the monk said softly. "That is hell." Stunned, the warrior froze. The words pierced through his fury. He loosened his grip, tears filling his eyes, as shame gave way to humility. In that moment, he bowed deeply before the monk. The monk smiled gently and said, "And that is heaven." This story reveals a truth both simple and profound. Heaven and hell are not distant places. They are states of mind, created in each moment by our own choices. Anger, hatred, and greed open the gates of hell. Compassion, humility, and love open the gates of heaven. The power rests not in external circumstances, but in the attitude we choose. How often do we imagine that peace depends on the world around us? We say, if only my circumstances were different, if only I had more money, better health, kinder people, then I would be happy. But the monk's teaching reminds us, even in the same situation, one thought can create torment, another can create peace. The gates are within us, opening and closing with every response. Consider two people facing the same hardship: a job lost, a relationship ended, an illness diagnosed. One sinks into bitterness, blaming the world, trapped in anger. Hell arises in their heart. The other, though grieving, chooses acceptance, resilience, even gratitude for what remains. Heaven reveals itself in their heart. The situation is the same. The difference lies in the gate they open. The Buddha taught that the mind is the forerunner of all things. With our thoughts, we make the world. This does not mean we control external events. Storms will still come, losses will still occur. But how we experience them depends on the attitude we cultivate. If we meet pain with resistance, it becomes unbearable. If we meet it with compassion, it becomes a teacher. Heaven and hell are not in the event. They are in the mind that meets it. Ask yourself, what gates do you open most often? Do you slip easily into anger, jealousy, despair? These are doors to hell, and we all know their fire. Or do you nurture patience, kindness, gratitude? These are doors to heaven, and they are always available, even in the midst of hardship. The choice is not always easy, but it is always present. In meditation, this choice becomes clear. A painful thought arises. I am not enough. I have failed. If we cling to it, we suffer. The gate of hell swings wide. But if we observe it, breathe with it, and let it pass, we return to peace. The gate of heaven opens silently, without fanfare. Each breath becomes a doorway, each moment an opportunity to choose. There is a story of a farmer whose land was struck by drought. His neighbors despaired, cursing their misfortune. But the farmer smiled and said, "This too is part of life. I will plant what little grows and share with those who have none." His attitude did not change the drought, but it changed his experience of it. Where others found only hell, he found heaven in the act of generosity. This teaching does not ask us to deny suffering. Pain is real. Loss cuts deep. But even in sorrow, the gate remains within reach. We can choose to let grief harden into bitterness, or we can let it soften us into compassion. Heaven and hell are not about escaping life, but about how we live it. As you breathe now, imagine standing before two gates. One glows with light, the other burns with fire. Feel the pull of both within you. Anger invites you toward the fire. Compassion invites you toward the light. Each thought, each breath, is a step in one direction or the other. You are not trapped. You are not powerless. You are the traveler, and the choice is yours. The samurai in the story discovered this truth in a single moment. His rage opened hell. His humility opened heaven. We too can discover it, moment by moment. The next time anger rises, pause and ask, do I want to open the gates of hell? The next time kindness arises, notice, this is heaven, here and now. Slowly, the habit of choosing peace grows stronger, and the gates of hell grow weaker. This practice also transforms how we see others. When someone lashes out in anger, we can see that they are already standing in hell. Their suffering is burning them from within. To respond with anger only pulls us into the fire with them. But to respond with compassion keeps us in heaven, and perhaps even offers them a glimpse of it. There is another Zen saying, "Heaven and hell are not places we go after death. They are the paths we walk each day, carved by the choices of the heart." This is not metaphor alone. Science itself now shows us that attitudes shape the body, the brain, the nervous system. Anger floods us with stress, weakening our health. Compassion calms, heals, strengthens. The gates of heaven and hell are etched not only in the spirit but in the flesh. As the night deepens, consider the gates you have opened today. Which moments brought you into fire and which into light? Do not judge yourself harshly. Simply notice. Awareness is the first step in choosing differently tomorrow. You are not condemned to walk through the same gates forever. Each moment is a new threshold. Each breath, a new choice. And so, let this lesson settle in your heart. Heaven and hell are within you. You carry the keys. With each thought, each word, each action, you decide which door to unlock. Choose compassion, and heaven opens. Choose anger, and hell ignites. The monk's teaching is clear. The power is always yours. From this realization flows another teaching, one that eases our fear of surrender. For if heaven and hell are not distant places, then perhaps the current of life itself is trustworthy. Perhaps, when we release control and stop fighting, the river can carry us home. Let us now turn to the final lesson. Trusting the current, the drifting boat. On a wide river, a small wooden boat drifts with the current. The rower once strained against the flow, paddling furiously, determined to control the direction and pace. His arms ached, his breath came short, and still the river carried him in ways he did not expect. Exhausted, he finally laid down the oars. To his surprise, the boat did not sink. It did not crash. It drifted gently, carried by the current, guided around rocks, led toward open water. The rower realized that the river knew its course better than he did. His task was not to conquer the current, but to trust it. This image holds the final teaching: trust in the flow of life. We spend so much of our energy trying to steer, to force, to control every twist of the river. We plan, we calculate, we resist, as though we could dictate the path entirely. But life is larger than our designs. No matter how hard we row, storms arrive, waters shift, and unexpected turns appear. At times, the greatest wisdom is to set down the oars, to let the current guide us, to trust that the river flows toward the sea. Trusting the current does not mean passivity. The rower still remains in the boat. He still notices obstacles, adjusts when needed, and stays awake. But his relationship with the river changes. Instead of fighting it, he collaborates with it. Instead of resisting, he aligns. This trust transforms struggle into peace, turning the journey from battle into dance. How often in your own life have you felt the need to fight the current? Perhaps a change arrived, an illness, a loss, a transition, and you resisted with all your strength. This should not be happening, you thought. Yet the current carried you regardless. Resistance only brought exhaustion. Now think of times when you surrendered, when you allowed life to flow. Perhaps you discovered a new path after disappointment, a new strength after loss, a new beginning after what felt like an ending. In surrender, you found not defeat, but freedom. The Buddha spoke of impermanence and dependent origination. Everything arises and passes through causes and conditions. To fight this truth is to suffer. To trust it is to find peace. The drifting boat teaches us to see life not as something we must control completely, but as something we are part of a vast current carrying us toward awakening. There is a story of a disciple who clung to control in meditation. He forced his breath, tightened his body, demanded silence from his mind. He grew frustrated and exhausted. His master said, "Why do you grip the reins so tightly?" Meditation is not a horse to be broken. It is a river. Let it flow. Sit gently, breathe gently, and the mind will settle on its own. The disciple tried this, and soon he discovered peace, not by force but by trust. Trusting the current also means trusting yourself. Often we fear surrender because we do not trust our own capacity to navigate. But the truth is that within you lies wisdom deeper than your plans. Just as the river knows its path to the sea, your heart knows its path to freedom. Trust is not blind faith. It is recognition of your own inner guidance, the quiet compass that appears when the noise subsides. Ask yourself, where in your life are you fighting the current? Perhaps you resist a change in career, clinging to what feels safe. Perhaps you resist aging, clinging to youth. Perhaps you resist uncertainty, clinging to control. What would happen if you placed the oars down, even for a moment? What would happen if you said, "I will trust this current. I will see where it leads"? Trust is not always easy. It requires courage, for the river may carry us through rapids and storms. But even storms are teachers. The current does not abandon us, it shapes us. Each challenge polishes the stone of the self. Each turn deepens our wisdom. In the end, the current always leads toward the sea, toward wholeness, toward release. There is another Zen story. A master pointed to a boat drifting down a river and said, "See how it floats without effort. The river carries it because it is empty. If the boat were full of rocks, it would sink." Be like the empty boat light, open, trusting the current. Then you, too, will be carried. To trust the current, we must release the heavy stones of fear, expectation, and control. The lighter we are, the more easily we drift. In relationships, this trust brings ease. When we stop trying to control others, to steer their paths, we allow love to flow freely. When we trust the unfolding of another's journey, we create space for them to grow. Love becomes less about clinging and more about freedom. Like two boats on the same river, we drift together for a time, trusting that each will find its way. In meditation, trusting the current means allowing thoughts and feelings to arise without judgment. We do not need to suppress them or cling to them. We simply observe, letting them drift like leaves on the river's surface. In time, we discover that awareness itself is the river, steady, vast, unbroken. Trust grows naturally as we rest in this flow. As you breathe gently now, imagine yourself in the drifting boat. Feel the current beneath you, strong and steady. Notice the urge to grab the oars, to steer with force. Then release the grip. Place the oars across your lap. Allow the boat to move with the flow. Feel the freedom in this surrender, the peace of trusting the river. The horizon may be unseen, but the direction is certain. The sea awaits, vast and welcoming. Trusting the current also dissolves fear of death. For what is death but the river meeting the sea? The boat does not vanish. It merges into something greater. Our lives, too, flow into the vastness of being. To trust the current is to trust this final surrender, to see death not as annihilation but as transformation. The boat is not lost. It becomes part of the ocean. And so, as the night deepens, let this truth rest in your heart. You need not fight every current. You need not control every turn. Life flows, and you flow with it. Trust that the river is carrying you home. With this, the circle of teachings is complete. From the kite in the wind to the drifting boat, Each story has been a lantern, guiding you toward release, presence, compassion, and trust. You have walked with rivers and moons, bamboo and bells, petals and vases. Each has whispered the same truth. Let go, and you will be free. Now, as you close your eyes, imagine yourself gently carried by the current of life. The burdens have been set down, the striving released, the fear softened. The river holds you, steady and sure. Ahead, the great sea glimmers, infinite and peaceful. Trust it, rest in it. You are already home. We have traveled together through 25 stories, each one a lantern along the path. A child with a kite, a river bending around a rock, a petal falling, a string tuned just right. We have walked with seeds in the soil and wheels turning endlessly. We have gazed into Indra's net, watched rivers flowing, pilgrims walking, mothers letting go, and lamps shining quietly in the night. We have followed the current through bamboo storms, silent bells, paradoxical moons, lakes reflecting the mind, ferrymen midstream, broken vases, morning dew, gifts of anger refused, burdens released, crickets singing in stillness, moonlight pouring through windows, gates of heaven and hell, and finally, the drifting boat. Each parable has offered its own key, but all point toward the same door. The freedom that comes when we loosen our grip. Control dissolves, striving softens, fear eases, and we find ourselves carried by a wisdom larger than our plans. The world is still uncertain, the storms still come, but we no longer stand rigid against them. We bend like bamboo, reflect like the lake, shine like the lamp, and flow like the river. Remember this: peace was never outside you. It was not hidden at the summit of a mountain or locked in distant heavens. It has always lived within, waiting patiently beneath the noise and the struggle, waiting for you to pause, to breathe, to let go, and to recognize it. Each teaching is a reminder of what you already carry. So now, as you rest, let your body sink deeper into ease. Trust the current of life to hold you as gently as the river holds its boat. Release the stones. Refuse the gifts of anger. Cherish the fragile dew of this moment. You are home already. Rest now in the embrace of release, and awaken renewed light, clear and free.